like that.
The robot voice.
This meeting is being recorded.
We are recording. It is very dystopian. Welcome to the show. I think the music might have stopped by now. I do. I would have showed you guys. Maybe I'll show you after the show. But I'm going to be using James Brown songs more or less exclusively.
Actually, question. We did see it, and we noticed that it had a comment by a certain, and we want to give a shout out.
Go ahead.
Shout out.
Yeah, we want to do because I don't know if you know, but there's did you read the comments
Of the podcast?
Yes, and it was nothing bad. Somebody actually was like, "Oh, like
That's Roy.
Huh?
That's a friend of the show, Roy.
Roy." Okay.
From
That's very
Buffalo
because he
State.
wanted, huh?
That's from Buffalo State.
Okay, because
Yeah,
like we went.
I know
Okay.
them. But,
Word, that's cool. We saw this 4th of July celebration video that they had.
Yeah, we really need to know, Roy, what amphetamine were you on when you were recording that?
Yeah, he's a fun guy. He's actually, I'll talk about him before we start the actual because as I told you, both the listeners and otherwise, I guess our hosts, I like talking more than anything else.
Yes.
I enjoy it more than writing.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, that's Roy. I met him actually. He's like, I have 2 day one friends from Buffalo State, and he's kind of one of them. He lived in the same floor as I did. Porter.
Okay, word, nice. I was gonna like maybe you know him from Buffalo State.
Maybe you know him from Buffalo State. Maybe you said you know him from Buffalo State.
No, I was gonna say maybe you know him from Buffalo State. So I'm like, how does this person know Paul? But that's cool.
Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, he's actually. Yeah, he was my. We bonded over the same shit we are right now. He was more into like. He still is like more into like. I guess artsier shit. Like we watched. I'm trying to think what he was. Like I guess the David Lynch, but I don't think you watched David Lynch. Like dramas and shit. So he was not into the Marvel thing. He liked the Batman Superman movie though. So yeah. But yeah, anything like he thought the Marvel stuff was too cartoony. He's a great friend though. And yeah, was he on meth? He's weird. Like he's usually actually
no.
He's a pretty serious guy usually. But like he does like he'll go from 1 to 10 pretty quick, and it's pretty funny.
Shout out to Roy.
Yeah, shout out to Roy.
Roy, yeah, he actually fucking listened. I'm very happy. Anyone else is listening?
Say what's up to Roy. Drop a thumbs up for Roy.
Yeah, thumbs up for Roy.
Thumbs up for Roy. Like and subscribe for more content.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, this is episode 2. We got a cat here. I might show my cat later. I have 2 cats, but you'll be hearing it.
Your Patreon, Paul.
What again?
You showing your cat?
That's for the Patreon subscribers. That's the Patreon exclusive. That's a Patreon's weird. Before I could talk about that's a weird thing. We're here. It's episode 2. We're gonna be writing we're gonna try to write one of those franchise movies that Hollywood has been obsessed with. And Devin, what's the history of the franchise movie? Because I hit record right when you started talking about it, because that's kind of we're both gonna be writing trying to write one, like the bare bones, like it's not gonna be complete. It's just gonna be some ideas and maybe at most like maybe a paragraph outline. But beyond that, like we're not gonna, we're just gonna try and record the actual like what does that process of writing this sort of thing look like? What's the history of the franchise?
Well, I'm not. I mean, I guess I did kind of go to school for this, but also I'm not. I don't know if I'm not a professor or anything, but from my understanding, it's kind of loose. Is that there have been like I was saying before, like film serial franchises from like the 30s and the 40s, and then films became a little bit more singular in the way they were presented. But then you have them kind of going back to franchise type movies with like Star Wars in like the late 70s, Jaws, And then you have like horror franchises like those. I mean, I don't know how many Nightmare on Elm Streets or
yeah,
like
that's what I'm saying.
Friday the 13th movies there were. And then you have into late 90s modern film. You have superhero franchise
action movies too,
Yes,
like the
action movies.
Bond throughout the years.
Yeah,
and
Bond was throughout
Mission
the years.
Impossible
Mission
too.
Impossible
Yeah.
as well. So yeah, we've kind of looped back into telling franchise, serialized type films.
Yeah, from books too. Sorry.
Also,
Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. I guess
books, comics, all those things are being adapted into film, and those have multiple parts. So as opposed to like a film having to take like the span of maybe like multiple decades worth of like stories and being like, okay, let's break it down and condense it all into one film. It's like, okay, so we can have the opportunity to tell this over the course of like 3 or 4 films, or maybe even like a TV series. You can expand it out. Yeah.
That's about right. And again, I've become very into the discourse of like, oh, are these movies ruining Hollywood? What is your guys' take on that opinion? Because that's been coming increasingly dominant. Like once Scorsese said, Marvel's not cinema, which I've come to understand his point in a very big way. But I just wanted to give the floor to you guys first.
Jared, do you want to go first? I feel like I just talked a lot.
You said like the whole Scorsese thing where it's just like
are these
is it not cinema?
Yeah, like is this love of franchise filmmaking ruining like is it,
I don't know, ruining what exactly? Because I guess it is. I get it. Like there that more and more like original ideas are becoming like harder and harder like to come by because of all like these like franchise things. Like I get that and I understand that, but I don't know, just like having all these different. The market is like expanding, I'd say, in a way. Like there's like a lot of people. This gives like a lot of people like jobs. You know what I mean? Just like all these like different types of like sequels are just like coming out and whatnot. I think you know what I mean. And it's just like even though I know they can be kind of like.
Well, Cookie Cutter was what Denny.
Like
he just made one, by the way. He made Dune.
Yeah, but it's not. I don't think it's like cinema's dead because of it. You know what I mean? It's just like more. It's oversaturated, I guess you would say. You know what I mean? Because this thing is superhero stuff is like the new what's popular, just like spaghetti westerns back then. You know what I mean? And now
westerns is a good comparison because what superhero movies are about were what westerns were about back then.
Word. Exactly.
Oh, I want to say so. Me and Roy actually, I remember talking to him once about how I think I talked to him about like how there's just so much music out there. It's oversaturation to the point where it's like you don't even know what to listen to. I'm sure. I guess movies and television is going the same way. It's like, I don't even know what to watch.
Well, that's why you have different streaming services like Apple Music, Spotify, Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max that literally take what you already watch and listen to and then are like, okay, well, if you watch this and listen to this, you'll probably like all this other stuff, and we're probably not gonna plug in like the things we don't think you would watch into like your queue or like what we recommend for you, so that way you don't really have to decide. Like they take it all and then somewhat choose for you, but also promote the things that are in their best interest. Like, if Netflix has like a new movie or original series, they're gonna put that at the front of your recommended, whether or not you would actually like it, just because they want more eyes on it.
See the Scorsese,
they definitely make up some statistics. Like what's that movie? It's got Ryan Reynolds, The Rock, Gal Gadot, Red Notice.
Oh, Red Notice.
Yeah. Netflix is like, oh, like this broke so many records, like 1 billion trillion people watching. It's like, I don't know a single person that's talking about. No, I haven't seen that.
Have you seen the movie, Paul?
No, I don't even know what I think.
Wait, let me see what Netflix said about it.
Yeah.
Red Notice numbers. Yeah, they're saying it's on par with the Avengers. What is this? Look at this figure. It says 277 million hours and counting streamed. Like, I don't believe that. I don't believe that for 1 second.
No, me neither.
Also looked like the most generic action movie ever made. And we're talking about franchise films. It just got approved for not 1, but 2 sequels. We're going to make it a trilogy. It's a guaranteed Netflix trilogy. They're saying so many people watch it. It's as big as the Avengers. I don't know a single person in real life that has watched this movie.
What is it? I wonder what it's about, the fact that it just garnered such a following.
I don't think it had. I think it's an inflated following. I think it's false.
Oh, kind of like you know how like rappers are clowned upon for like faking their streams.
Yeah.
On Spotify. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I mean you can pay for streams. You can pay for streams on Spotify, on SoundCloud,
YouTube too. Right? You can buy followers.
Yeah, you can
fake
buy bots
yeah.
that follow and like and make fake comments and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
fake
Scorsese said something about how content has become the name for art, and like he says that mentality is ruining the form. And hearing that, it's like, oh, it's kind of. What'd you say, Jared?
I agree. No, I was gonna say I can see that. I don't know if it's like ruining it, but it's definitely just reducing it to just like
the
content,
biggest,
you know.
Yeah. All right, and then we're gonna go to fucking actually writing one of these, which is like. But I think that's my because here's the thing. I grew up on these movies. Like these were what made me want to make movies and television. You know, I didn't. This is a Chris Nolan quote. Like no one, you know. I feel he was in an interview for Dunkirk and he was like, you know, no one, when you're a kid, you don't want to make a Godard movie. You want to make Bond, you know? So there's an attraction, especially from a young age, to make, you know, movies of that scale. But the thing is, they cost a lot of fucking money. Mm-hmm. And that's always going to, just that mix of commerce and art, I think defines what movies are in a way. Like, it's not like a book where it's like, yeah, I'll write a book and it, you know, the money aspect really just makes it really weird and different, but also good. It's like, it's with a book, you're not like a movie. That's an event. Everyone sees a movie, you know, more. I mean, I'm talking very broadly. Whereas with a book, it's just, no, because I've been thinking of getting into like prose and novel writing and like theater as a way to do ideas that Hollywood doesn't do anymore. But there's just something about like a big fucking screen with like 200 people watching the same thing. You know, like you can't read a book together. You can't go, all right, let's read a book together. Like, you know, like it's not a communal experience.
I mean, read a book like collectively read a book.
Not at the same,
at the same time, because everybody has different.
But I will say, I mean, I don't know if there are definitely book clubs, and I remember I wasn't even reading the series at this point in time, even though I was like in the target, like I guess sort of demo, but like Harry Potter. I remember even when those books were coming out towards the tail end, given they were bolstered by the movies and their popularity, like when those last couple of books were coming out, like people were at Barnes and Noble.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm just talking the actual experience of the form. Like painting or music or like just how the work enters the brain is what I'm talking about.
We have a special guest.
Andy. Oh my God, you let that beard grow.
Oh, thank you. Oh,
so sexy. It does look good though. You look really good.
I don't want to deter the very important conversation that you guys are having. I'm sure it's very
No, Paul, you said you like just like talking. So let's have Andy.
What's up, Andy?
Your guest spot.
Yeah, but I wasn't scheduled, so I'd rather wait till the time that I am scheduled because
you're always welcome, bro.
So have fun. It really looks like you're chatting on Omegle right now or something.
With a stranger. Is that the stranger one or what is Omegle? What's that?
Yeah, that is. It's like chat roulette. Should I pee with the door open?
Don't do that. You'll talk to the camera because you weren't booked, but you'll pee with the door open.
What was I saying about? There's something when like Harry Potter takes over and everyone is reading it, but it's different than like everyone being in the same. And again, theater comes close to that. It comes closer to it, but there's just I think I just really like the idea of a bunch of people consuming. You know.
Well, do you think the listeners are going to be able to hear Andy scream? We're streaming.
Did he scream just now?
No, stream. No.
Wait, say it one more time. Will they be able to hear? Say it one more time. Stream or scream?
Stream.
Stream with a T.
What about the stream?
Do you think? Could you hear it?
I can't hear anything.
No,
Oh, okay.
We're fine.
No, never mind.
Was that why you were laughing?
Yeah, maybe. I thought it was loud. I thought it was really loud. So my bad. My bad, Paul. What were you saying?
I could feel. We're gonna talk about this off air because I'm sure. Okay. Okay. That's how we're gonna do transitions from now on. I just go. Okay.
Dude, that's gotta be the.
Oh, you tell me at one point the video
is gonna go. It's gonna go.
And then it's gonna be you. He's so jarring and scary.
Yo, what's my
We're honestly still trying to figure it out.
That's what. I was trying so hard.
I kind of wanted it to be
Oh my god. Word.
All right. All right. All right. I can't over because okay. So another one of my favorite things is overdoing jokes. I've been doing that since middle school, and kids then find it really annoying. But so we're gonna. Okay. I did the visual version of it for only that you guys because yeah I take out the video for these, so it's just the audio. Huh?
Keep the video in. Make it.
Oh, I would, but it's gonna mesh because I do want to start doing these in person, and I don't know. That's kind of why it'll be like a jarring stylistic thing. It's like, oh, this one was video, but then this one wasn't. But I mean, I'll always have the files. I don't think they go anywhere. I mean, unless I have to start deleting shit on my computer to save space. But I don't know. That's something to think over. Because well. I don't know. It's like the pros and cons of like, do people need to see our faces? I got used to the A-side one where they didn't. Huh?
Sight gags from this episode.
Say it one more time.
The sight gags with Andrew in this episode.
That'd be pretty funny.
Yo,
Yeah, I grew up on this stuff, so it's just weird to like go like I'm not in. I think I think it's ruining stuff, but I don't know. It's a question that's a little unanswerable, but that's its own issue that I'm sure I'll probably come back to it.
Yeah, I actually didn't get to say my piece.
Yeah, before we go, do you think, the Scorsese quote is, Marvel movies aren't cinema. And I'm sure he'd make the same complaint about like that's weird. He's friends with George Lucas and he has approved like Star Wars. So I don't know. I mean, because this is a George Lucas thing. That bye Andy. Bye, say bye guys. Bye Andy. Bye Andy. Bye. Okay. Last one. Yeah, the record. Oh no, he's back. He's back. All right. Bye Andy. Bye Andy. Bye. Bye.
Who the fuck is Andy? Like, I'm trying to hear what the boys think of the Scorsese quote.
Oh, it's very important, guys. This is really important shit.
Hey, Paul, can you promise that on the next episode, Andrew will be the guest?
If he wants to. It's up to him.
Yes. Andrew, can you promise to be the next guest?
Is it always on Sunday?
It's done whenever. I don't. It's no schedule.
Andrew.
I'll do it.
Bye, Andy. Bye, Andy.
Yes, he said
Bye,
yes.
Andy.
Wow.
Yeah, bye, Andy. Yeah. Oh, bye, Andy. Bye, Andy.
Andrew's like the cookie neighbor.
Yeah.
Even though he lives here.
All right. What's your opinion on this? Because he said blockbuster movies, again, in the vein of I'm putting words in his mouth, but it's like basically what Star Wars, what George Lucas and Steven Spielberg built, that world of like Jaws, Indiana Jones, Star Wars. That is essentially it's closer to like a theme park than quote unquote cinema. What do you think?
I see what he's trying to say, for sure. Because his main thing is that he's like, cinema is about risk. When you walk into a movie like a Spider-Man movie or Star Wars movie, you've seen the basic tenets of the movie before, even with those same characters. Like probably, like it's not really like that much of a risk. Like, and no superhero movie has been like close to like maybe like in art house sort of film, super experimental. And that's why I think the people really like movies, superhero movies now, that stand out because they subvert your expectations in a way where it's like an Infinity War, the heroes lose, or even with the latest Spider-Man movie, or even Spider-Verse, like just visually it was like very different, set itself apart, different than what you were expected to, what you've seen over the past like 20 or 30 years with these movies. So in a way that I see what he's saying, like, yes, they're kind of like roller coasters. Like it's big, extravagant. It's not a movie that you would want to watch. Well, you can watch it on like your 30-inch like television screen, like at home on FX, but it's not going to hit the same way as if you watch it in a packed theater, like 200 people, and it's like, on an IMAX screen. But that also being said, we're in a pandemic. We've been in a pandemic for like a year and a half, 2 years, some ridiculous 50 years at this point. Theaters are definitely going through a tough time, but Marvel movies accounted for like 30% of the box office, like total this past year. That's also helping keep theaters in business. So it might be a thing where it's like both can coexist. It's like most people, aren't going to go see some like smaller indie art house film, but the theater is going to be able to stay open to screen that film because the last Spider-Man movie made like a crazy amount of money at the box office. But then there's also the double-edged sword where I think Quentin Tarantino tried to show a movie in a theater or something like that.
There were multiple showings of like multiple theaters.
I think it was like something where Disney said like they wouldn't let that theater chain, if they kept in Quentin Tarantino's movie for as long as they wanted to, then that theater chain would not have been able to screen the next like Star Wars franchise.
This is Hateful Eight era. This is 2015, December 2015.
Oh, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, you probably know what I'm talking about better than I do. So that's when it bleeds over into the negative, where it's like now these big studios have a monopoly, where it's like, hey, we can cut you off completely, so your chain would just go under because no one is going to go. That the amount of people who are going to go and see that smaller art house film is not going to keep that theater chain above water in terms of cost, so that they can keep screening movies. So there's a balance to it. I think both movies can exist for sure, and they both have their pros and cons and their merits and their people who laud them and people who detract from them, and that's fine. That's just how it's always going to be. I can enjoy both, and I can look at a Marvel movie and be like, oh yeah, this is schlock, but like big explosions are cool. I think like this line's funny, blah blah blah. It's like I know what I'm going into necessarily, and there isn't a risk with that, as opposed to like, oh, let me turn on this like weird movie I saw on like a trailer for on Netflix, and it's like I don't even know what that could be about. Like, let's see. You could come out a little bit. It was unexpected. It was unexpected, like a movie like that, as opposed to watching like the 20th Spider-Man movie or Superman movie.
And before we embark on writing an attempt at that, I think that the thing that that has helped me rationalize, like, okay, I spent most of my life obsessing over superhero films and reckoning that what's, the Scorsese point, which I do agree with, I think more than most people, it's an audience thing. It's like, who's the audience? And I think these movies, it's like, it's the Nolan quote where it's like, it hits you. These movies are so good at hitting people at a certain age where it's like, this becomes like it can become like your life for a little bit. And I don't think there's anything really wrong with that in a way. I think it's such an effective tool of teaching values and like what life is really about, kind of thing, on a very, very broad sense. But so Kevin Smith he actually gets it more than most people, where it's like it basically replaces religion. Like he's quoted as saying like being like a Jedi was like, that's like Sunday Catholic Church,
Yeah,
it's very similar.
I'm pretty sure. Wait, that might be, being a Jedi might be an actual religion.
No, it is. Oh, it is.
But it is a religion.
Are they tax exempt?
Tax exempt.
I'm about to Google that.
That is. I saw a meme that was just like, that part in episode 3 where he's like, "Oh, why would you join the Sith? The Sith are evil." And then Anakin was just like, "The Jedi are like an
The
organized."
Jedi are from my point of view, the Jedi are evil.
Exactly.
And they are tax exempt.
They are
They're
tax
tax
exempt.
exempt.
And they're
Wow.
then you are lost.
Yeah. Exactly. Wow.
Well,
But like you're saying,
hysterical. Yeah, see, we just quoted Star Wars, like that, especially those movies for our generation, that's like baked into us, like, at least for the nerdy ones. And I can't speak to Kyle.
a lot of Star Wars, I feel like a lot of that imagery, some of the like the more, iconic quotes and like costumes. Even if you're not a nerd, they kind of bleed over to the point where it just becomes part of like the cultural sort of zeitgeist, like the whole shit where it's like Luke.
And
Some
that's
people heard that and have no idea what it's even really attributed to, but that's how far that Star Wars is.
And that's powerful. That's mythology. That's Iliad, Homer shit. And that's something I wanted to work with for a long time. But the thing, and it's all right. We're almost done. We're gonna get to the fucking right. This is all my thoughts in franchise filmmaking. Just trying to get it down on because I didn't ask, well, why do I want to do this? Like, I didn't know, there wasn't a why attached to it. I mean, there was, but it wasn't, I guess, that deep. It's a mythology thing. So William Goldman, he has a great quote. He's like one of the best screenwriters ever. I have to watch more of his movies, but I did watch all the President's Men. I watched like 10 minutes of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, which is apparently one of the best written movies ever. And he said how there are two kinds of films or two kinds of art. There's art that upholds a culture's values, and there's art that criticizes it. So Star Wars upholds the values of Western civilization or American civilization, and The Godfather criticizes it. Jaws upholds American values. Taxi Driver criticizes it, like so on and so forth. And the harsher the criticism, or the harder it is to watch, I guess the more artsy it becomes. And the thing with Hollywood is they love the first one. They love the myth making. But what's also happened that's also worth mentioning is, and this really put things in perspective, is basically Jaws and Star Wars are basically B movies. Before then, A movies had to be about like serious subjects. And then Lucas and Spielberg flipped it. And now basically the movies that get $100 million are basically movies that would have gotten not even $1 million 50 years ago. And then again, that gets, was that right or not? I don't know, but it's something I didn't even know about until like a month ago. Like, I to see it like in that perspective, like, oh, that was the way to determine which things got the money, like something like a World War II movie would be given $100 million, and then Spiderman would get $1 million. And now it's like this, so that's its own thing, because then it gets into like, I don't know. These conversations go on forever, but we're trying to create a myth. So, there's also just some fun about, I think, these movies. So we're gonna try and tap into that. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right. We might return to this conversation, I guess, later, because because I know last time we started writing at like 35 minutes, and I think we hit that point. Because I think we started at 2:20. So we got like an hour and a half left, and then you can get that cat fixed, because she won't shut the fuck up on my podcast. CJ, shut the fuck up, CJ. CJ, shut the fuck up, CJ. CJ. Well,
I feel like you said CJ.
Oh, whoops! I just said TJ.
CJ. I hope I got that the cat's name was CJ. I was like, okay, I was worried. DJ, shut up, DJ. TJ. Okay, I did it the last time. All right. I got this. Yeah. So this idea. Let me pull up my version of it. Yeah. So it didn't come. These ideas don't come to me. I have been seeking these things out. Like there's a way. Oh, he's showing him something. Oh, you got the.
No,
I'm
it's just
showing
it's the
him-
prompt.
Yeah.
It's the prompt.
I know you're gonna show like something where it's like Paul is stupid, and then
No.
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 Delete no. We have the prompt up.
Yeah. All right. So here's what I wrote down. All right. I just called the idea Spider-Man. This is an intentional take on Spider-Man. It's basically, I guess I'll talk about how I got the idea. I sought it out. I've gotten very good at just cobbling together an idea. I'm a big history fan. So, and I've gotten very good at taking like an historical setting and playing with it to the point where you get like something that resembles a franchise movie. So this particular setting, it actually came from one of my own. I steal shit. That's actually George R. R. Martin does that. George R. R. Martin. This is from the Punic Wars. If you know anything about Roman history, it's Rome versus Carthage. It was basically the ancient Western world's version of World Wars One and Two, which is pretty interesting. I think it's interesting. It's set in the year. Huh? Say one more time.
Was he fighting Hannibal at that point?
So that was the second one. This is actually taken from right before the first Punic War, because you got Rome, and it's like powerful but not too powerful. I mean, it's powerful. Like it's basically it's also the Cold War-ish, where it's like you got these two giant superpowers, and it's like they're about to fight. Who's gonna win? And well, I'll get into where it's all right. So the year is 2050, and that's something to really talk about. This sort of writing is like names. It's set in New Philadelphia, is what I fucking called it. A mega city that stretches from Atlantic City to Old Philadelphia to Trenton, New Jersey. This is just pulling right from Judge Dredd, especially Dredd, like the 2012 movie. With Carl Urban. I guess Blade Runner too, like just a big fucking city was the idea. And in this world, a series of global events have rendered the world having two superpowers, United Europe and the Southern United States. That's especially the Southern United States part. I needed to couple it with something. In the middle of this New Philadelphia lives a 16-year-old named Tyler. If you're a friend of the show, there's a real life Tyler, Jared's old roommate, and
same time around. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that the reason is it's like, and the idea was like, I want to write something. I want to write the movie that I would have loved at age like 11 or 12 or 13. And it was like, well, how do I what character would that even be? And I was like, well, Tyler's actually, I think, more than anyone, he's like my superhero movie guy. Like that's a lot of what we talk about. And what we did talk about in college. It was like, oh, well, let me write the movie he would have liked at 11, hopefully. And I was like, all right, let's pick out Tyler from age 16 and let's use him as the basis for the character. He's a normal dude, hangs out with his friends, probably likes a girl he can't get himself to talk to. Again, your basic, even Miles Morales was that in Spider-Verse. It's your pretty standard young adult hero, especially young adult male hero. And one day while hanging out with his friends and doing adventurous shit, he accidentally finds himself in the lab of a secret spy scientist from New Europe. That's ripped from Captain America, First Avenger. And just the idea of like, it's usually in those comic books, especially the Stan Lee ones, for reasons that we could get into. It's usually like a freak science causes a situation that gives the main character superpowers.
You say freak
Freak
science?
science?
Yeah, where it's like a spider that got fucked with, and now it's gonna, or radiation, and it's gonna make you get angry, or the Fantastic Four.
Those I know, speaking on to like sort of those comics and how they're a reflection of like the era they're made in. I know Spiderman, that was a reflection of worries of like radioactivity after the dropping of the nuclear bomb. Same with Godzilla.
Cold
Godzilla
War.
was a response to that. Much like Captain America was a response to the Nazis. And even in the modern interpretations of those same heroes, a lot of it has to do with sort of like genetic manipulation, referring to like sort of the things
Not
that
like cloning, but like just like
like
altering.
DNA,
Exactly.
genetic modification. The things we do with like food and genetic splicing and things like that.
GMOs.
So yeah, so that usually the at least with those types of sort of I guess like superhero origins, like it's rooted in like something going on in the times. Like it's science fiction, but it takes some science that's actually going on in current day and then expands upon it, and you let the imagination kind of go wild to the point where a guy can cling to walls and a giant lizard can destroy Japan 20 times.
Exactly. So
And then
That's
fight
all worth keeping in mind. Let me see if there's anything else. Yeah, just to wrap up. I'm gonna get right to that. Just to wrap up, he gets hurt, gets superpowers, goes home, he has superpowers, and we're gonna try and write the rest. Unless you want to change all that shit, it's also up to you guys. I'm not attached to anything at all. Not a single thing.
I will say I do like the fact that the metropolitan area of Philadelphia has expanded into New Jersey, because I feel like that's what would happen.
So this is a dystopia.
This
then.
is
Oh, it's sort of that. All right, so I guess
Across the river to Trenton.
it's actually not. The idea was there were these. All right, so some of the mythology I built out, I guess, on my own time, to explain like, well, why is there this giant fucking city on the Eastern Seaboard? There was a group of 8 billionaires. I don't know why it's 8, but it's 8. Who basically built this mega city as like a safe haven for, I guess, again, cataclysmic events, which I've used before, that trope, but it's a little different, but it's basically a safe haven from the Cold War between these two great powers. That's the idea. So it's actually a pretty nice city, I have to say.
Oh, so it's wait.
It's close, huh?
Dystopic?
Huh?
The general world dystopic? Like, do they know?
No, it's more of just
It's like corporations and billionaires seem to have a lot of power.
you can go that way if you want it. I wouldn't. Which gets into really again how Pulp Fiction, like Tony Stark's a billionaire and is a hero. Like what?
Yeah, with Batman, I guess too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's this idea too, like, oh, the wealthy are good people.
Is the best year reference. I'm sorry.
Huh?
No, it was Green Arrow too.
Green Arrow. It's the idea. I mean, and again, so that's the thing with comic books too. There are things you'll do because just to make story sense, like just from a pure plot logistics point. Like, oh, to be Tony Stark, you need a lot of fucking money. To be Batman, you need a lot of fucking money.
The character like Spider-Man is constantly struggling with like bills.
Right. He's a working class hero.
From the early like Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, John Romita Senior comic books, and it was like almost every other issue. He's like, I need to go to the Bugle and pick up a paycheck. I need to take pictures so I can make my like rent. So they really kind of flipped it on its head to the point where it was a superhero which was constantly struggling with money, which is why I think readers gravitated towards him more because they could relate to him. As
I was going to say that. Yeah,
it's
about a billionaire, exactly. Yeah. So.
And then what's also interesting is that a lot of times those writers would have the hero do something in their like civilian vocation that related to their superheroics. Like Superman, Clark Kent, he was a reporter for the Daily Planet. Spider-Man, he took pictures of his heroics, like he was a part of like the news media. What's another example
of like their alter ego or
it's like there's some crossover
between the two. Okay.
Between the two.
I'm sure there's
what's interesting is that Luke Cage actually was like his whole thing was that he was a hero for hire, so he would just let people hire him for his heroics. So he would often be like some dude's like bodyguard or have to protect something or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, that might be something to think about. Just like if our character's a teenager, but maybe if he does something and is like what makes those those stories interesting is that there's like a cross section between sort of like the two identities, like the superhero life and the civilian life have to come into contact somehow. That's why when those Spider-Man stories, everyone always likes it when someone in his personal life turns out to be a supervillain or someone's in danger because of his super heroics. Same thing with the Batman movies. When Joker kidnapped Maggie.
Rachel!
Yeah,
When he
exactly.
kidnapped, that's another example of like, oh, but even it wasn't because the Joker knew that he was Bruce Wayne. He liked Rachel. It's because Rachel was seeing Harvey Dent, who was like the DA at the time. So just that sort of cross section between the real life and the superhero life is always just it's a gold mine for conflict.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. It is exactly what you need when you need like conflict, because like, oh, when that person's doing something, that's the whole appeal first. Like, oh, one person's doing something somewhere, but the superhero has to come in. You know what I mean? They have to find a way, and especially when like you said, when their two lives like kind of intertwine, and they have to tread carefully because if they do this, then this person will figure out my identity. So I have to, and then there's the whole thing. It's like, oh, who do I tell with this? This is this is just gonna be on my mind.
So that has to be something we also think about when crafting this. Is that like what's his? You said he hangs out with his friends. So like
he's a normal kid. That's how I imagine him. Yeah.
What's his family like? Is he the type of person who lets people into that secret? Does he care? Why does he, if he does it all, have dual identities? Why doesn't he just have one? The kind of revolutionary about the Iron Man movie came out in 2008. At the end of it, he's just like, I am Iron Man.
Yeah,
usually most people you go in a superhero movie expecting them to be like, oh, I have to hide my secret identity, blah, blah, this and that. He was just masked off with it. And to the point where basically every hero in the MCU, aside from Spider-Man,
had their identity pretty much.
Yeah, no, it was like they didn't care. There were no mass or secret identities or anything like that, really. So that's the only thing about it. Is he more secretive or open type of person?
I'm going secretive just because again, if we're riffing on Spider-Man, I go secret.
Well, there's definitely some Spider-Man stories where he's open with his.
For sure.
So his identity, and then even when I was watching some videos on Insomniac game, their Spider-Man games, and they were talking about the difference between Peter and Miles Morales, and they were saying Miles is a bit cooler and a bit more open. Like he lets his friends know that he's Spider-Man, as opposed to Peter, who's very like lock and key about it. Very to himself. While Miles is a bit more open. Warmer to people, I think.
I would.
And that's what makes them two different. They're pretty distinct people, but they're both Spider-Man. And even this concept, there's very famous Spider-Man variant, Spider-Man 2099. Completely different guy, Miguel O'Hara.
That's what I was gonna say. This reminded me of Spider-Man 2099.
Yeah, it takes place dystopian future. He works for this company called like Alchemex, and he ends up getting bitten by the spider. And he gets all these different spider powers, but he himself is very different from Peter Parker. He's a scientist. I think he's supposed to be Hispanic. I think he's a bit more brutal too. I think he kills people pretty often.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, his whole thing is that he's fighting against this evil corporation as opposed to Spider-Man, who just
fighting the random villain.
Yeah, whatever bank robber or scientist gone mad or genetic abomination of the week.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me. Spider-Man 2099 reminds me of like Batman Beyond. So
yes,
it's like,
very
you know what I mean in that way.
What movie?
Batman Beyond.
Batman Beyond. Yeah. Well, all right. So it's worth investigating cyberpunk for like 5 seconds. It comes from the early '80s. William Gibson's Neuromancer, more or less creates with cyberpunk. Like again, the evil corporation. Well, that especially the evil corporations. The look is Blade Runner, and there's a cool story about how William Gibson was writing Neuromancer. He goes to see Blade Runner and he's like, oh my God, this is exactly what I imagined in my head. This is really uncomfortable and feels weird. And then he met Ridley Scott a few years later, and they found out that they were taken from the same inspiration sources, namely 70s French comic books, film noir. That's actually kind of the two big ones, is film noir and 70s French comic books, which look just have a very unique look to them. That's, I guess, worth investigating on your own time if you're into that kind of stuff. That's also what Denis Villeneuve grew up on. like that sort of fiction. So that's all. But yeah, that's cyberpunk, and that's where it came from. And that's where Spider-Man 2099 and Batman Beyond got it. And yeah, this is a more unique take, I guess. It's called post cyberpunk, where it's not as depressing, basically. Because the thing with cyberpunk is, it's the idea. The reason why it was so innovative was it was this idea that, contrary to what old science fiction writers thought in the 50s, humanity would get better as it progressed technologically, and the cyberpunk people were like, well, no, it's going to stay the same. The same we're gonna have the same problems we have now in the year 3000 and 4000 and 5000. Versus, again, the more optimistic view is like, well, technology will solve our problems, which I kind of lean towards a bit. And so again, Star Trek kind of does that a little bit, with the caveat being this is all still pulp fiction. It's still more action based than, like, it's not 2001, A Space Odyssey, or where it's like you're really trying to deal with these issues of like how technology and science affect mankind. Like Star Trek is not that, nor is this trying to be that either. Because I've been reading some futurology stuff as of late, and it's like the world is so in the actual year 2050, you'll be dealing with climate change. AI will be kind of a thing, and
oh yeah, do you think the water level will have rise and rendered a lot of like Philadelphia kind of
ironically, yeah, but in this world there's a bunch of billionaires who prevent that, so but that's the fantasy of it. It's like we're not trying. There's a certain fun to, well, there's a certain artistic point with portraying the future as it will most likely turn out to be, and then there's also a fun of like, well, no, there's gonna be, this is what it's gonna be a lot more fun, because in the real world there aren't people who get spider powers. But what if there were? I guess again, that goes back to audience. So like, who is this for? Yeah, like an 8-year-old's not gonna find a realistic science fiction story on what 2005 to 2050 look like that engaging, but he's totally gonna be like, oh my god, I'm gonna have like superpowers, or I can have that's worth keeping in mind. That's actually what I really wanted to talk. My biggest problem with this idea, or my biggest issue I couldn't solve, what the fuck are his powers gonna be? Like, what's the thing? Like, what is?
Because like, is it just going to be an extension of like just like what we've seen with Spider-Man, where he has like his like normal skill set, but then with Miles Morales, where they added like the paralyzing, like the venom,
Yeah, he has
or
like electricity.
Electricity. Yeah, exactly.
And even with
like invisibility.
I think Spider-Man 2099 has like a slightly different power set. So I think with like generally with spider people throughout the multiverse and different interpretations, they have like a base level of like increased like strength, durability, speed, stamina. That's like general like superpower stuff.
Yeah.
And then you get the spidery stuff like clinging to walls. And then it depends if you want to get like even more spidery or make them more tech based. So it's like, in a lot of interpretations, Spider-Man makes his web shooters. In the Sam Raimi one, they gave him, it was just like he got bit and then he could make the webs. And then in the comics, ironically enough, when that movie came out, they gave Spider-Man new powers that fit more in line with the movie version. So then he started actually making his own webs. And then he also got like talons in his arms, or like kind of like an inverse of like Wolverine. So he could like stab people. Let me see what Spider-Man 2099, but also Miles Morales can go invisible.
Invisible, yeah.
He has invisibility powers. So, it honestly, like, it might help to actually like just do some research on like spiders themselves and see exactly like what they do, and seeing like, oh, okay, well, how could I like take this like concept and then extrapolate that and make it like a superpower or something like that? Because, spiders definitely, like a lot of insects, or even like lizards, and technically even people, because people wear ghillie suits. That's a version of camouflage.
Yeah, that is true.
Just blending in with your environment. I know also spiders do something weird with like, they can like it sends like the electricity in like the ground or
Mhm.
something like that, and then they use that in a way to make like little balloons with like their webs, and they use those balloons to fly on like air currents.
Really? I
Yeah,
did not know that.
yeah. They also can walk on like water, like they balance
oh
out
yeah,
the surface tension. So maybe our character, he can walk on water.
that'd be
Maybe
pretty cool. Yeah, I
we'll
think so.
pull Jesus.
Yeah, so you guys missed my fucking question because you guys,
Well-
I think your brains are a bit smaller than mine. I'm just learning this now. No, I actually really just meant is it Paul's an asshole?
No, I'm showing him.
Spider uses electricity to fly.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Whose brain is small now?
Everybody, yeah.
What I meant was very simply just what are our characters' powers? It's going to be its own thing. Like, what is if a child was to draw our character, what would it look like? Like, what's
Let's see.
I mean,
you said he's in Philadelphia.
he's in Philadelphia.
He's got the 76ers logo like on his chest.
No, I got it. Wait, who was Allen Iverson was on the Sixers, right? Allen Iverson was on the Sixers. Who was their
Yeah,
big
he
player?
was.
He turns into Allen Iverson. Like Shazam.
Allen Iverson is his sidekick. That's it.
He's a sidekick. And he's really pissed off about it the whole time. I'm a fucking sidekick now.
I wasn't MVP for this. No way. Well,
There's our story. So there we go. So Allen Iverson.
That would look like.
Huh?
You said what would he look like?
What is our character's thing? Because I was very simple. I usually just give him because I've written a lot of this stuff since graduating college. I spent a year and a half more or less exclusively writing like sci-fi fantasy action shit. Like that was like all I did more or less. With some variation. I mean, well, it's like 2/3 of what I did. And that's a whole other podcast that that's an hour-long conversation of how I spent that year and a half writing. But I'm simple. I give him super strength, super speed.
Maybe
Call it a day. I think the term is flying brick is the term.
Flying Rick.
Flying brick. That's Superman basically. Because it's like I don't really like. I was never into like, oh, what kind of powers is he gonna have? It's more just, well, what's gonna be the thing that lets us have action scenes. But if we can have more fun with that if you want. That's kind of why I meant like, what's this guy's thing? Like he's Spiderman, he crawls on walls. This guy's the thing. He's a big fucking rock.
The rock guy. Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Well, it says here spiders are good at jumping. There's spiders who, very efficient with jumping. So maybe he can leap like extraordinarily high.
Okay, I'm gonna. Okay,
How is
Spiders.
this possible?
do we want him to have an animal motif or a motif in general?
Do we want? Oh, well, that's also something. So, do we want him to be more of a straight up superhero, or do we want to implement like body horror modification to it?
Well, so the funny thing is, genre-wise, you're talking about the same fucking thing because there's 50 comic books for body horror.
Yes.
Like you're literally the only thing is what happened was the body horror turned into no, this is awesome and I can do great things with this. I was so happy you knew that. Yeah, in the 50s, all those Marvel comic books were just. I mean, they were B movies, but
or horror comic books too. And what's interesting is that the famously or infamously derided Fantastic Four movie directed by Josh Trank, I think it came out in like 20.
Yeah.
Fan Four Stick. They went more body horror type of sort of slant with it after everyone got their powers. There was a lot of like I mean that movie was just a mess from top to bottom, but there is something to think about in terms of that sort of way to play it is that it's like, oh, my body is doing all this and that now. Like
I was thinking and I was kind of going in my head with that too with this. Because okay, he falls in. All right, so the scientist again, he's basically. I mean, that's actually it's both. yeah, it's basically a Cold War story, really, which is funny because it's just, but instead of Russia and America, it's basically Rome and it's Rome and Carthage, and then there's just this single city that's like that's actually based in Syracuse, by the way. So Syracuse before the first, well, actually throughout the Punic Wars, Syracuse was an independent city-state that kind of went for both sides at different points of over the 60 years that they were hashing out some differences very violently. But that was the idea, I guess. And the scientist, I don't know why he's there, but he's there. And the authorities don't like it, so it's a secret. It's a secret lab. So there's that element of conflict to it. And yeah, I guess again, if we're gonna get political, it's such a vague. Again, it's almost kind of my issue with these movies, and it's so broad of a thing to talk about. But I like the idea of like, because it's so universal. It's like, oh, the boundaries dissolving between peoples. Basically, like, oh, you're not Russian, you're not American, we're human. It's all one team, brother. But that's usually, and that's a hippie thing. But it's again, these are from the 60s, so this version of Pulp Fiction is from the 60s. So I guess it makes sense why that is ingrained in the form. So yeah, that's the vague political slant, if there is one embedded in the story, is that it's like, oh, we're all just people, man. I just spoke a lot, but that was some more mythology I built up in my head that if you want to, I don't know, we could go wherever with it. But yeah, the body, I was imagining, to really bring it back to what we were talking about. Yeah, there's an element of what did you do to my fucking body with this character? Like, what the fuck is going on?
Do you think it could be a thing where, like, because you said, how does he get his powers again? It's
well, it's freak lag. So he's hanging out with his friends. Like, all right. So the most I came up with visually, I was imagining like almost like Back to the Future style, like these hoverboards, and that's the thing the kids do to have fun. Like they go to school at like Trenton High or whatever, and it's they got out of school and they just kind of, it's basically like a sci-fi version of riding bikes. Only it's like, you go really fucking fast and zoom around the fucking city. And one day they're doing that. He falls into some hidey hole.
Bro, kind of like, wait, have you ever seen Akira?
Oh yeah, Akira, again, it's cyberpunk. Yeah. And that's interesting if you know the history of cyberpunk, because that was its own, like, so Neuromancer was going on in America. And then the Japanese are doing their own cyberpunk thing. It was kind of, there wasn't, to my knowledge, there's no cross-pollination between those two countries during that time. So it's like, yeah, they ended up, Akira, exactly. Again, Akira in general, I think, especially influenced so many comics, and especially superhero comics afterwards. I watched it with Cheek. You met him a year ago. He's a huge anime fan, and that's sort of it's all the same shit at the end of the day, to some degree. Akira.
Oh, okay.
Right. I loved it. I love, especially the animation. The story didn't make much sense, but
the story was nuts. But when you were saying like, oh, they're doing this thing, zooming through the city, and then an accident happened, I was like, that kind of reminds me of Akira in that way.
Yeah, it's Akira. It's I get my thing was literally, because I actually, what's funny, with Back to the Future, I grew up on the second one, not the first. I watched the first one a few times, but most of my memories are watching the second one. And yeah, they have that like hoverboard, like
that is famous hoverboard scene.
Exactly.
I mean, it's skater culture. It's so skaters in the 90s. Redmond loves skating, so that's kind of how I know about skating culture. So does Leo. Leo loves skating. It's kids in the 80s, like Stranger Things and E.T. It's people, Tyler was in bands at that age. It's the idea of like, what do teenagers do for fun after school? And that's kind of what I was riffing on.
I feel that. And funny enough, in The Amazing Spider-Man, Peter was a skater kind of in that movie too.
Yeah, no friends, and that's another. Again, building a character for this, I didn't build him up too much in my own head. but it's Tyler. It's like because I asked him like, Tyler, what were you like?
It's dude, he played. So maybe you could do like Tyler plays drums, dude. So
You could do him. Yeah, I mean, I could be his music in the world. He's made part of a band.
And then like he's like with the body horror thing, you know what I mean? He's like, guys, like don't freak out, because there's like Peter, who doesn't tell anybody.
Yes, that's the thing. All of his friends are gonna find out he has superpowers.
Friend group to kind of like, you know what I mean? To
This
kind of
is
get
not a
back.
loner.
Like, I can't fucking play drums right now.
Right.
Well, I think
You know
what Spider character actually has those exact traits. Spider Gwen.
Really?
In her own universe, I'm pretty sure she's even the drummer for her band. And
No way.
I think her friends do know she has. I think everyone finds out she has powers. Actually.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Actually,
This is a dude. Basically, Tyler. I'm just gonna use his name because real life Tyler. I asked him like, "What were you like in high school?" I was like, "Well, I was like I had friends, and I had a friend. I think he had a friend group, but he was the quiet one of the group." And this is Tyler. Like it's basically if you imagine like 6 friends all hanging out, that's the one who talks the least.
Mm-hmm.
They all like him very much. I mean, I guess Will is like that in Stranger Things, but yeah, he's the quiet friend. Not a loner. That's a very big distinction. Not a loner, but yeah, he's got people who give a shit about him a lot. And so yeah, there would be conflict there. It's like, yeah, I'm sure they'd find out pretty quickly, like, oh, what's up with your, like, something's going on, you're not telling me. It's like, all right, I have this thing happened, and
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of where my head went. Just the other last thing, just really clear up all the preconceived ideas I had for this. Because it's fine. The original plan for this was I was gonna write it up for 2 weeks and then give it to you, Devin, and like, hey, what do you think? But writing's really hard, and it was finals week, and there's also just this general sense of like it's really hard for me to motivate myself to write. So it's just more fun with other people, especially this kind of writing, especially at this point. Huh?
Here, talking it out, it's hard. It's hard though, because no, I don't think any studio has tried to make their own sort of its own adaptation from scratch. They're never. I mean, it's. I mean, no. It's. What am I trying to say here? I guess we're kind of doing the same thing, but we're doing like a very, very radically different sort of thing. Like we're trying to go as far away from like I feel like what Spider-Man sort of is, and like trying to make like our something so distinct that it can be set apart. While when all these studios were doing it, it's like, okay, so like what aspects of the comics are like we using, and what stories are we adapting like specifically, as opposed to like
it's our own mythology.
IP, like what kind of ideas can we glean, and then how can we make it like our own thing? I don't think it's always, if anything, Sam Raimi kind of did that the most. Yeah. And then at that point it became more Sony and then Disney sort of controlled. So they had like more, I guess, like micromanaging, like the fans want this and they want this, and then we need this because this will make money, as opposed to thinking like, okay, like what are we trying to do here? Like maybe I can spin it this way or that way.
Yeah, honestly, I agree with that too.
Yeah, we're trying to build our own mythology. And so just to get in really before one would actually deal with this sort of idea, there's a few things. Not even this is just, I mean, it's for me, you, or just anyone who is wanting to work with this sort of material and writing. I mean, obviously the most obvious one is a spec script. This would be used to get work writing for the big movies. Again, how to get there. Its own fucking discussion, how to get your script on Sony's desk or whatever. That's its own discussion. Comic book, obviously, probably the most natural home for this because it's so visual. If you don't know how to draw, it's a young adult novel, and there's like I bookmarked a list of 93 young adult novels of recent years. So it's a tried and true genre. I'm not a book guy, man, especially with this stuff. Like the appeal is you get to see Spider-Man. I don't know how well it works if you're, and then he swung on the wall, huh?
Novel form, right?
Yeah, novel, prose. It's like Hunger Games, Harry Potter. And there's a lot more examples of that in the young adult world. Again, there's 93 of them I fucking found. And it's like a bunch of like, fantasy and sci-fi and in that realm of things. Again, all for the same age range that Spider-Man is.
Mm.
And you can write it as an animated spec, I guess. That could be a TV show. I forget. I mean, it's really up to you guys. I mean, it's up to you guys. It's also kind of relevant because we're only really working on just like the most we're gonna have after we have an hour left is like, yeah, here's this paragraph of what this thing could be.
Mm.
That's the most it'll probably be nailed down. But yeah, it could be any one of those things. But it's basically, I guess the dilemma is like, is it a move? Is it a thing that's over in 2 hours, or is it a thing that goes on for like issues and issue after issue after issue? You know,
A franchise, right? This is
and
like we have.
it could be both. It goes both ways. It could be again, that's why I said it's irrelevant because it's like, you know, that choice to be made again if they really cared about the idea. It would be like, okay, is this something that's 22 pages an issue, or is this a 2 hour? Is this an experience? Because if it's a 2 hour movie, then it's like, well, novel would fit that too, where it's like a one shot kind of, you know, one arc. Or is it like, you know, each episode is its own thing? I don't know. It's up to you. I mean, what do you guys think? Oh yeah, with the idea being it's also kind of irrelevant. But what do you want to do for the next hour? Let's put it that way. Like, are we creating like a movie, or is this like a
Well, I think let's lay down like the core foundations of the character, the conflicts, the
right?
past,
Mm.
and then the antagonist. What does he face?
Yeah, that's what I
is
was gonna
his?
say. I was gonna ask because when you were talking about the body horror type thing, I was thinking, like, how do you like? Because I was thinking about, like, you know how we are talking about Spider-Man 2099 and Miguel, how like he's fighting a corporation. I was thinking about the body horror thing, where it's just the type of thing where he's like, okay, he's obviously like really against like or at first he doesn't really realize the scope of his powers or whatever, so he's trying to maybe, like, let's say if it's a corporation, like you said he was zooming around on his like hoverboard things, and he like, you know how like Daredevil, like chemicals like spilled on him or whatever and he became blind. It could be a type of thing where like it's like a big corporation that's like really shitty and negligent, you know what I mean? And then that should like deforms him. So he tries to hunt down like the head of the corporation, you know what I mean, and try to get him to fix him. You know what I mean? That type of thing.
Some more of a revenge story.
Yeah, so yeah, in the beginning, because I think that's not entirely foreign in terms of like a concept of like
You know
what
where it
Spider.
comes from? Guess where? It's just such a cool little factoid.
Hmm?
The Count of Monte Cristo,
Count of Monte Cristo. But
Alexander Dumas.
where's that?
Huh?
Where is Monte Cristo?
I forget. It's isn't it a sandwich? I think it's a sandwich.
The sandwich. It's literally Monte Cristo. It looks kind of good.
But look up the Count of Monte Cristo. Look up
The
the
Count
Count.
of. Oh, it's in France.
It's a French. It basically is the ultimate revenge story.
Oh, really?
Dude, yeah, it's set in the Napoleonic France. This dude, he's a rich dude, and he loses all his shit, and he has to go on basically he goes on an adventure to get a lot of money and get revenge on the people who betrayed him. Basically, it's like the arch typical, or one of the adventure stories. Again, which is a lot of where this Pulp Fiction kind of comes from. You know, I mean, there's other sources, but this is a really early one, because the real Pulp Fiction stuff that comes in the late 19th century with like adventure stories and that kind of thing, and they were always set in like Africa, or you know, which is it's like an extension of colonialism, which is that's its own topic, but yeah, it's an earlier version of it, which I didn't know about until a few months ago. Like, oh, there was an even earlier version of this, which is kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, it's a run story. It'd be riffing on that a bit. My villain, and this is stolen from Spider-Man, especially it's Norman Osborn, but it's basically so one of those 8 billionaires. This is a dude who does not want anyone interfering with his city. He thinks it's his city, and he will do anything to I guess keep everyone who doesn't belong out. Which I wonder who that could be. Oh, and Andy's back. Hi, Andy. Hi, Andy. How you doing, Andy? Hi, Andy. Okay, bye, Andy. Bye, Andy. Hi, Andy.
I don't want to spread any slander on Paul's podcast, but I just got robbed at the Mexican spot. Not actually robbed.
I was gonna say.
Wait, across the street? Yeah, that spot. I just was like, I want to try something different. I want to go. This place is right by my home. I want to try it.
You said it like that?
To myself. That's
You
how
said that right
that's how I talk to myself. I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll brush my teeth.
You're like right outside.
I spent like $20 on this burrito and fries.
Did you do the exact
Dude,
same
you
thing
do.
earlier?
But I bought rice and beans with it.
Wait, when did you go?
I went like earlier today.
You went today?
Yes.
We had the same thought today.
Yeah, we did. And yesterday with the garlic noodles.
Damn, you guys are insane.
I guess we are.
But,
I made that mistake recently. I tried something new. It was a lot of money. I forget what it was though, but
Right?
What was it?
forget. I just remember that feeling recently. It was like I had to try something new. Huh?
Dude, that's why I do it so much.
That's why we live here.
Yeah.
All right. What was I? Arr! I think I gotta find when the last time I can do this before it really gets old. But yeah, I stole Norman Osborn for this. Basically, it's Norman Osborn, and then it's that whole I mean, it's Donald Trump. It's that whole like, we got to keep this place us. Is the idea. But that's something that's obviously open to change. Well, not only is it open to change, we could keep that and then like create 5 more villains if this is a comic book, because we need episodes or we need issues. So, but yeah, I want to, huh?
This city of New Philadelphia.
Oh, we can change the name, by the way, if you really want, because I think it's kind of a lame name. I'm not a fan.
New
Philly.
No, that can't be its
New Philly.
New Philly. Old New Philly.
Old
New
Philly. The bell is needed.
Wait, so let's just name it after the main villain. He like owns the city.
Well, that he doesn't. He's part of I think that's why I picked a group of billionaires. He's not like this he's not a dark lord who rules everything. He's part of a board.
Maybe he's like the most front-facing billionaire. It's named after him. I mean, they have to have some sort of like public facing.
Well, all right. So if we're doing mythology, usually, I mean, this is Paradise Lost, where it's like the second guy is the bad guy. Like the second in command is like the evil asshole.
Oh, kind of like Dick Cheney.
Dick Cheney.
Kind of, sorta, but our head guy would be more competent, I guess, and more.
George Bush.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
So like whoever we think is the real villain actually isn't the real villain.
Mm-hmm.
We could, yeah, you could do that. But it's you know what? It's funny. This is another thing. I was working on another adventure story. This was set in like space. That's such a but yeah, it was a space adventure story. I mean, it was basically ET, but it was basically because I love space shit. This was like what is it? The year 3000, and it's like a spaceport, like this giant city. It's a spaceport. Star Trek shit, Star Wars shit. I'm trying to think. I guess almost like a version of like a Star Wars world, that kind of like the Boo or whatever. Or a much nicer Mos Eisley, basically. And I was just building out for a hot second. Huh?
For family.
Wait, say it again?
It's like the Fuddruckers version of Mos Eisley.
What's the word you just said?
It's like
It's a restaurant, right?
Oh, restaurant. What's the name of it?
Fuddruckers.
Fuddruckers?
Yeah.
Fuddruckers. Sounds like a race car driver.
I went there when I was little, but it's pretty much like Applebee's.
Fuddruckers. Fuddruckers?
Yo, everyone in all viewers, if you know about Fuddruckers, give a thumbs up in the chat below.
Yeah, thumbs up, like, and subscribe, please. Subscribe for more content. Patreon. I stole that joke, I think, from you. I stole that from someone who was doing that on something. I feel like I stole that. I forget who. Again, it sounds like a Jared joke I might have nicked. Like and subscribe for more content. Thank you.
I do say that though. No.
Yeah. Fuddruckers. That sounds like a made up. That sounds like a made up thing. That sounds like something like I don't know. I don't like the name. It also sounds like Fuddfuckers. It sounds like a curse word.
Well,
That's what I thought you were saying. Yeah, I guess the Fuddruckers version of Mos Eisley. And in this world, I was working for a hot second. I noticed in a lot of children-based adventure stories, the authorities are the good guys. In a lot of teenage stuff, the authorities are the bad guys.
Mhm.
And I had to make that distinction in my like hour of writing the bare bones of this fucking thing. Because it's like, oh, do these people go for help or not? Like, because it was a kid's story. It was like a bunch of 15-year-olds. I mean, actually, it's the same age range as our character, maybe a little younger. But the idea was like, at the end of the story, do they get punished by the authorities or are they rewarded? And I was like, oh, he's got to be rewarded, and I think that's the world I want to work with, where it's like the authorities are actually the good guys. But it's up to you guys, I guess, if you want to change that.
I think if the billionaires are villains, then the authorities should be corrupt.
But I want and that's the thing. Should we do a story? Because that's its own political link. Like, should we even do a story where billionaires are good people, or is it like it's just more of a conscious? It's just more relevant if it is like, no, they're bad.
I think maybe we can. I think generally, broad stroke, they're bad. Maybe as we get to know them a bit more and we get to see their personal motivations.
Yeah, I was gonna say the personal motivation is kind of like what makes the villain.
It can be seen as a little bit more gray, and since there are 8 of them, it can kind of run the gamut. Like some can be actually just like the worst of the worst, and then some could be like actually maybe a bit sympathetic for, maybe even see as being a bit animal.
But not one would be like unapologetically good. You don't think?
No, because I think in the world, I mean, Paul, look at the world you set up. It's where the world's in the middle of a Cold War. Philadelphia is now the size of the entire Eastern Seaboard. I know
it was more like it's basically the size of half of
the sprawling. I think the sprawling aspect of it. You know what I mean?
It's all one city. Like I could just imagine that being super congested and dirty. And even Blade Runner. I watched the first Blade Runner a few weeks ago. It didn't seem like a nice place to live.
But artistically, I was leaning to. Let me look up. Cool. See, here's the thing. This is what the viewers are really gonna lose out on. With
Oh wow.
no, when we where's my share screen function? Cool site. So again, the viewers are gonna lose out on this because they fuck the viewer. No, not fuck the viewers. We love the viewers. Cool. So the mood that at least I was going for in my head. What was this? Yeah, Neuromancer. So this a little bit. I don't know how much you can really see that. I think this actually is Judge Dredd, but a little less like this. This is film noir. It's the rainy shit. Though it's funny, I've never seen a film noir with actual rain. I was imagining closer to, I mean, I guess Coruscant, just to use Star Wars.
City Planet City.
Kinda, but I'm trying to find like, actually, honestly, I've known this work of Deviant art for years. I really love it, like something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like that looks kind of cool. Not this. Well, all right, I'm gonna do. All right, so this, not this,
Okay.
this, this, or this. I think it's the SpongeBob quoting.
I was gonna say, is that the SpongeBob? Not
This, not this.
well. I feel like they all have that kind of similar.
Well,
Yeah.
well, here's the thing: is that a city is densely packed.
Right, but and this gets to the right would be shithole, right?
I can only imagine that it would be much like real life and much like how it's usually shown in science
But
fiction.
this is what
The
we get
lower
into.
classes live in very, sort of destitute environments, and then the people in the upper, richer classes live in like these penthouses and have
But
cars.
you touched on something. I again, the viewers missing out because I'm really leaning in here. You're touching on something very important, my friend. Is this a work of realistic fiction or is it pure pulp? Like, who is this for? Because the reason I picked the setting, because when I was a kid, I loved it. I loved this sort of shit. Like, I guess because I guess I grew up in the city, so I didn't, my view of cities in general, these majestic, beautiful places. So if I'm creating something for my own 11-year-old self, it's like I don't want Blade Runner. I mean, I love Blade Runner, especially. I didn't get it the first watch. I got it the second watch. But yeah, I don't want like a grimy shithole. I wanted this beautiful, like, I guess it's the same kick people get out of going to, like, Middle Earth, or I mean, James Cameron tried to do it with nature, and I think he succeeded. Avatar.
Well, here's the thing: is I see what you're saying, but I also feel like within all of those pieces of media, even with like Star Wars, I know you said you wanted it to be like sort of like the family friendly version of Mos Eisley, but even in the prequels, like you look at Anakin was literally like a child slave. He was a slave. So while there were nicer areas and royalty and things,
there's always a dark underbelly.
There was always a dark underbelly. People who were poor always had to work. And even then, the whole thing about the prequel trilogy, the Star Wars trilogy, it was almost like a political thriller with all the politics going on. Nothing could get done, and then eventually Palpatine got control of the Senate without really having to, fuck around.
I mean, if you want to talk history, it's just a rerun of the Roman Republic, like just very specifically.
Things can look nice on the exterior, and there can be nice areas, but I feel like for just like a city of that scope and the idea that all these billionaires have consolidated power, and there's a Cold War going on between the southern United States and
that's open to change. It was the South and Europe. For whatever reason, I don't know why, but I just thought that was the idea.
But there's a lot going on generally. I can't imagine it all that going on and things being like peachy keen for all the individuals just like trying to get by doing like average Joe stuff in the city. I would imagine things would probably be pretty difficult and confusing.
Interesting. Because then my head goes to, well, what would be
Because then you think if this kid's a superhero, he's fighting crime, there has to be crime to fight. But if the setting itself is okay, then what would he really be doing?
Well, I mean, look at the MCU. That's not a dystopic world at all. It's just it's kind of just our world. Like, there's good and bad, I guess. I guess I'm just really trying to avoid the dystopian angle. I love dystopian fiction. It's probably the one I find easiest to write, but for the purposes of this, I wouldn't go with that, unless I guess you guys want to, because I mean, I've noticed, huh?
What do you feel
about the whole? About the. I don't know. I can definitely. I see what you're saying. Because like, there's a lot of going on, and every time I think of this, when I read the prompt, I was like, or when I saw what you wrote, I was like, yeah, definitely thinking like, I was thinking like that, like Blade Runner aspect of it too, but not everything that, like, not everything in the, I would say not everything in that kind of like future is like always like, her, how in her, like, it's like, oh, It is like it is. It doesn't really feel, even though it's like the future. It doesn't really feel like super dystopian.
It's like the IKEA version of the future.
There are definitely problems, and people are definitely feeling lonely and isolated because of the technology. But they're using technology to kind of supplement that. It doesn't seem like a world where it's like shit is really shit. Like people are just kind of going about their lives. I'm sure there are problems, but it's not like it's not like any nukes went off anywhere and completely changed like the status of the world, or like the U.S. has been broken up.
Exactly.
Like the unions dissolved. But what you're saying here, you've already posited like a world where the union of the U.S. has dissolved. Like that is already.
Well, my idea was it dissolved and resolved, kind of.
When you so this happens in 2850, right?
That's of all the things that's movable, it's that. It's more important to me.
I was gonna say, because if it dissolved and resolved, let's just say that's all within 30 years, right?
Yeah, and in that case, I usually just go for all history. Like you could just kind of break it off after like even 9/11 and just go. So then there was President George Bush.
Okay.
I don't know. The history in that world is probably
the president's name. So there was a President Kush.
Oh yeah, Kush. Yeah, bro. He legalized weed, yo. Yo, he was dope as fuck. He was it was President Kush. It's actually he was a rapper before.
God, I want this.
Sorry, you keep trying to say this isn't a dystopia.
But yeah, it's real President Kush, yo. It's actually that's his actual name. It's President. It's basically his first name was George Cushio. So like Kush and then the hyphen yo. George Cushio. President Cushio. My name's Mr. President. Mr. President.
President Kush.
Cushio. Cushio, that's his name.
The mayor, and then he could be president. He could be mayor of New Philadelphia.
Yeah.
And then he tries to start up.
That could be a cool arc for the villain. Like the villain gains more power.
Mm-hmm.
And then
mayor and then wants to exactly, and then you can expose him.
And is he a rapper in this? Is he President Cushio?
Maybe that's like part of like
maybe that's part of what makes him so diabolical.
his killer rhymes.
And he has a whole like rap beef. Like he has a whole song targeting Spider-Man, yo.
So Spider-Man. It's almost like the future version of like his J. Jonah Jameson.
President Cushio.
About him, he just disses him. He makes mad diss tracks.
Dude, I mean, I'm sold.
It shit writes itself.
Yeah.
But that was I'm sure in this world history is a bit different. To get us to again the dissolution and resolution. That's not the fucking word, but you get the point. Where it breaks apart but comes back together, but in a different way. I mean, my idea, I was, again, as I was trying to build this world, I was imagining the world outside of United Europe, the Southern United States, and Trenton or New Philadelphia. It's not a fun place. So I guess in that sense, it is a bit dystopic. Maybe. World buildings. By the way, this is exactly what Dean Bell warned about when he's like, please don't write science fiction fantasy. And he was we were like, well, why? It's because you have to build the world. Like, no, he actually has a funny story about it. He was because he said, this is verbatim from him. He's like, well, we used to allow sci-fi fantasy. And then I was working with a student on a fantasy story. But every week the world would change. And I got to the point where halfway in the semester was like, Dean mentioned something and the student was like, oh no, that actually got erased. And he's like, what do you mean? It's like, they're elves now. And he was like, okay, you're not allowed to write sci-fi fantasy anymore. You got to do something else. I've read if it was a hard mandate or not. It'd be funny if it was. But it's like all this world building shit is sort of like, that's why it's like, look, why don't you just write about like a skateboarder or something?
Also, it's at that point we were writing our first like fully fledged scripts, it's probably best to just start like smaller scale, focus in on just like telling one singular
Yeah.
story that's like easily accessible and understandable, as opposed to trying to write like some magnum opus epic that could fill like 4 movies and then an expanded universe, and you literally have to create the world. Like that's a large undertaking. But here's the thing: all these stories that we love and we laud over and we ring out for the lore and things like that, they were pretty much made up on the spot. Like Star Wars, made up. Like I don't.
Oh yeah, during the filming.
I don't. I don't think
about.
George Lucas planned out the whole of the trilogy, even the original trilogy, starting out Star Wars 1, Spider-Man, those comics, they were constantly retconning things just from issue to issue.
Dying and then coming back to life.
You die,
and
you come back. Oh, you have amnesia.
Yeah,
You don't have amnesia.
yeah.
Oh, like this other person got bit by the spider at the same time. Oh, don't worry about that person. Even Dragon Ball, like famously, Akira Toriyama would forget about shit that he did. He almost made Super Saiyan 3, Super Saiyan 2 because he forgot he made Super Saiyan 2
already. Yeah.
And it's like as the fans and the audience, everyone gloms on these things, and they'll be like, no, you're wrong about this, you're right about this, like blah blah blah. When really the creators were making up the lore as it went, and then they completely felt like, generally it's bad practice to try and like retcon something in the script. Like once you establish the rule, unless you have like a really good reason for breaking it, you shouldn't break it. But these creators, they would break things all the time. And a lot of time it wouldn't be for a creative reason. It would be like a studio mandated or editorial reason.
That's a good.
They would change things around. Like a lot of the times it was like, I think even Steve Ditko, I think he left Spider-Man originally because he didn't like that Stan Lee made Norman Osborn the Green Goblin.
Really?
Yeah, I think he originally wanted it to be J. Jonah Jameson. I think that was the
I did
intent.
not know
And then
that.
he left, and
Okay.
then John Romita came in.
Okay.
So-
I think that's a better good on Stan Lee, because I like that choice more.
I mean, it's definitely proven a lot more fruitful now that we have like 50 years of like hindsight and storytelling. But at the time, I actually reread those original comics, like I said, like a few weeks ago, specifically where it comes out that Norman Osborn is the Green Goblin. And it's played not as epically as it was in the films, and a lot of that tension that made the original Spider-Man movie so great, it wasn't really there. I could see the inspiration for it, but it wasn't really there. It could have gone either way, and it probably would have been accepted in comic book lore just the same.
They both kind of are like interesting characters. They have interesting relationships with Peter and stuff like that. So I could see either one like working out. But especially
Shit, we're at an impasse, guys. What do we do? Do we like fight to the death for it? Do we do like a thumb war?
Over what?
Well, with the world of that we're working with.
I just think it would. The thing is, it depends on how you portray it. Like what type of rating you had in mind.
This is PG-13. This is light PG-13.
Yeah, and then I think the world it can have
For 11-year-olds. It's for 11-year-olds.
A little grit, a little grime, just so that if someone were to get robbed on the street, you wouldn't be like, this never happens. It's like, oh, it's just
like
part of the course for the city.
Mm-hmm.
It can, I think just to paint things with like a saccharine brush and be like things are okay, like it's kind of I think that breeds, you can tell fine stories with that, but it will definitely be pinpointed at a younger audience as opposed to being accessible for like older and younger audiences, and kind of being able to be engaged at like it can be enjoyed by adults and children alike.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning. You know why I'm leaning towards just appealing to some of the kids? Because at the end of the day, this is kid stuff. That's something I had to keep in mind. Because don't believe, dude. I took my glasses. This is very important. I'm talking to my older self right now. And Andy, he doesn't have to be a part of this. But CJ, listen to me. Andy, you too, Andy. I made the mistake over and over of writing in my year and a half is trying to write this stuff exclusively of writing for my age now, this sort of shit, and it fucking ruined it every time. Every
Wait,
time.
when you say that, do you mean you were at the age of like 19 writing for yourself for when you were 23 or 24?
Reverse it. 20 and expand the. I was at the age of 23 writing stuff for 11-year-olds, but wanting to include the 23-year-old audience. And it got to the point where it's like, no, you don't know your fucking audience. You know, like this is too mature for an 11-year-old. Like one idea was I wanted to and I still think it's a pretty solid idea. It was a superhero story set in the French Revolution. Actually, Jared knows a bit about it. I talked with him about it. With the idea being the French Revolution was kind of where all these values that superheroes fight for come from anyway. Liberty and democracy and sort of the idea that the individual matters. That's what superhero movies are about. It's about the individual matters and is worth saving and fighting for. So I was like, well, why don't we set a superhero story at that point in time? And I went like a Fantastic Four kind of route where it's like, oh, again, an accident happens and they get superpowers and that sort of thing. It was that plus the idea was like, what if magic were to actually enter the world at that time? What does that look like? So it was a few different things. But what happened was this would bore the fuck out of an 11-year-old and confuse them. So like, who is this for? So is this? I learned, oh, you have to really par it back, write it for an 11-year-old. Like, if you're gonna write pulpy shit, and I guess it's really just my opinion, of course. It's not right or wrong. It's just something that I learned after being frustrated for so fucking long. It's like, yeah, write for an 11-year-old. Make it like a bit more, like, make it more kiddie than you would make it usually. If you're writing the sort of stuff, because otherwise, like, look, if you're gonna write stories with these sort of values, like, why not just do a French Revolution story as is? Like, just do the French Revolution. Just do it.
Why involve magic? You're saying?
Why are you bringing the fucking magic? Because you're gonna lose the kids and you're gonna lose the adults who would watch. Because it's like, this makes no fucking sense. This is, what the fuck is this? Just play it, huh?
That's a good realization to have.
It took me so long. So much like agonized, like, why isn't this fucking working? But yeah, that's kind of why that's my left. But
I think there's
an element, huh?
With both audiences in mind. When you tell me write for like an 11-year-old, I think I'm writing like some like Nickelodeon like.
I know, and that's what I thought. And it's like, if you look at at least my reading of the comics, because I did actually read some Marvel stuff from the 60s 3 years ago. I actually sat down and it was like senior year winter break, and I was like, all right, let's finally read the OG Marvel comics. It was like, it wasn't that many. I think it was one issue of Fantastic Four, an issue of I think an issue of X-Men, maybe two. I forget. Because I was also trying to read as much because there's just so many fucking comics. It's so annoying. It's really, because I was like, how do I read all?
I don't feel like you have to read them all. I definitely have not. I wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah, I was also reading. I was reading DC stuff. I was reading like modern, like it was, I think, oh god, it might have been New 52. I forget. It was DC. It was like Marvel. It was Ultimate Marvel. It was just Avengers. It was a bunch of shit. But yeah, my reading of the original comic is like, oh, this is for 12-year-olds. Because I was like, why is this read so bad? Like, what the fuck? Like, why am I not into this? And it's like, oh, because it's for 12-year-olds, dude.
Well, it's also written. Those original comics were written in a completely
different style
era.
Yeah.
Like the things that they say, it's like, what?
Hey,
like,
bucko! Well, buckaroo!
Back then, like, I mean, those original Fantastic Four comics, I mean, the way they treat the Invisible Woman is like terrible.
Oh
Really?
God.
Yeah, no, it's like, oh, Sue, you wouldn't understand this, and it's because of your womanly condition or some shit like
that doesn't
that.
surprise me actually.
So it's
Yeah.
yeah.
Why do you think they made her like like the Invisible Woman? Do you think that's a thing?
Do you think there's an angle? Yeah, that's true. Is there an angle to that?
You don't see her,
Huh?
like that's what they were trying to go for.
Do you think? No, I'm not even trying to make a joke. Like, do you think that's just like, oh, she can be invisible? You know what I mean? It's just like
I don't know. I mean, they did make the thing
a thing, which is arguably the worst of all of them.
And you know what's funny is that actually canonically the Invisible Woman is the strongest. She's the strong because her force fields are so strong.
That's what I was gonna say. I know. I heard she threatened somebody where she's like, "I'm gonna make a force field inside of you and then like expand it until it goes like that." I'm like, she might be, yeah, definitely. But it's just definitely, I don't know. I'm not surprised that you say that. Where it's just like, I don't know. She's also a scientist too.
Yeah, they're all.
You know what I mean? So the fact that they're even discrediting her is like,
oh, this is not what I wanted to see.
Oh my god, is that fanfic?
Yeah, this is.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Right.
There is a comic panel. It was the Marvel Zombies alternate universe where She-Hulk was a zombie and she had like eaten the Fantastic Four's kids.
Really?
And Invisible Woman, like she literally did what you said. She like made a
force field in
her head and exploded in her head. But I googled Invisible Woman and She-Hulk, and I that's not what I got.
No,
that's not what I got.
I saw bad things.
Yeah, exactly.
You know about Rule 34?
I was just gonna say that. I do. Yeah, exactly.
For those who don't know, Rule 34.
Maybe don't talk about this on your podcast.
If there's porn. All right, no, Google. If you don't know what it is, just Google it. Otherwise,
yes,
don't tell people to do that.
Well, they know now, so
there's definitely. Let's just say, actually, I you know what it is. If it's on the internet, there's porn of it. There we go. Put it in there.
Yeah, I can't stop. It actually is all porn. I'm trying to find this one. Look, it's just porn. It's porn now.
Yeah, it's.
What was the thing you Googled again?
I literally Googled Invisible Woman, Marvel Zombies, She-Hulk, and I'm still some of it's kind of close, but then other ones are just porn.
Fuck off with that.
You're like, Paul's just like, ew, that's gross. But what is it exactly?
Yeah.
Can you send me a link?
What was it? Marvel Zombies, Incredible Woman.
Don't worry about it, Paul.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I said Incredible Woman.
No, incredible. No,
Woman. I thought The Incredibles. Marvel Zombie.
Yeah, because you're gonna find a bunch.
Why was she relevant again? Why'd you marry her up?
Why do we mention
Well, the Invisible Woman is a zombie.
How the original comics, they come from like a different era.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So a lot of the language just doesn't translate and comes
now.
off completely like ham-fisted and corny to us. But then also like a lot of the actual values that they held in terms of just the way they treated one member of the Fantastic Four just because she was a woman is just like completely. You can Google like just like Invisible Woman gets like told off because she's a woman or like something like that. And thankfully, like comics have now modernized, kept up with the times. They don't treat her like that anymore. But a lot of those earlier comics would be much like if you read any books or watched any comedy or TV from that time. It doesn't fit modern sensibilities, and that's why these things kept getting readapted because they're trying to retell these stories to fit a modern lens.
Exactly.
And that's why I think that for this story in particular, while it doesn't have to be like super dark, gritty, or rated R, it should definitely fit a modern lens in that, like, if we're setting up this future where all these things have happened, maybe it is a little bit grimier. There's like a little bit moral gray area. Like there is a way, and I'm specifically thinking about like Batman Beyond. That was a show that was made for technically kids, but much like in the vein of like the Batman animated series that came before it, it was enjoyed by both children and adults to the point where it redefined like the mythos for the character to the where people feel like that is the definitive version of the character, like Batman the animated series, and that inspired those Arkham games. Definitely Christopher Nolan took a lot of that for his Dark Knight series. Zack Snyder, same thing. Like
Yeah.
a lot of people, that theme, iconic,
Mm-hmm.
iconic. And yeah, Batman Beyond was a futuristic Batman story.
But it still had that grittiness. It
Yeah,
still
it
had
had
that, you know what I mean?
it had the
I think
grittiness, the
that's
neo
something.
noir.
Yes, it's funny because you say we were I'll just talk about cyberpunk, and you were saying like, oh, I kind of lean towards technology will fix like a lot of our
Fix the
problems.
future.
You know what I mean? Fix it, or yeah, exactly. And I'm just like, yeah, I definitely, I do think so, but also I think it'll also like with everything, it'll also create more. Exactly. So like with the first thing I think of is stop it. The first thing I think of is like with the metaverse, like being a thing now, or like potentially like
Yeah.
come to its own. You know what I mean? In theory, like on paper, maybe it's like a cool idea, but it's like whoever controls it, you know what I mean? We have to take their morals into account, and then what will that do? What would like even like socializing like be like in like 30 years?
I mean, I was thinking of writing actual science fiction about that because I've been so anxious about this shit for so long. And I was like, oh, wait a second, I can just write about it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
write
some of
about
that.
my anxieties. Where it's like, yeah, I'm anxious about like what is the future gonna look like? That is one of the scariest questions to me. Like where
Yeah.
is this thing going? Where's the world gonna be in 30 years? It terrifies me.
I think that's the appeal of the whole cyberpunk thing, which I think is
But
interesting.
I was gonna play it like 2001, where it's like let's really look at what the world will look like, huh?
Exactly. It just shows that even with technology, there's that like underbelly that will always exist, and it'll still
Right.
look.
It's
I
so
think the charm of it is.
the thing with cyberpunk though, yeah, the charm is that. The thing with cyberpunk though, I do consider it more of an exercise in style than substance a little bit. Like it's too cool.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to avoid, if I'm going to go down that path of writing that sort of science fiction, I want to avoid the cool factor as much as possible because my goal with that, no, because I've been thinking about that. I read like the last engaging thing I read was it was a review. Well, it was a review of Don't Look Up, which from what I've seen of it so far, I watched the first 40 minutes and the ending. It's an incredible movie. And the reviewer brought up this book. He actually mentioned two books. One was about the future of AI and how like what that's gonna look like. I was googling like other books in AI because that's predicted to be the next big thing in the world is AI. So I want to kind of like, okay, well, how can I understand it to like see like what's in store for us as a country, as a country and as a world. And the other one was about how it was talking about specific cataclysmic possibilities in the future that will end the human race forever. And I was like, oh, and it talks about like what could be in store for us and ways to prevent it, I guess. It's called The Precipice. Again, it was the most engaging thing I read in quite a long time. It was like, it's on Google. So it was like, I only had access to the preview. But I was like, oh, I could write something that would sort of like what this world looks like. Again, kind of doing like what 2001 did. Where again, it's more of an exercise in substance, not style. Again, playing into the whole like, oh, writing this, like it has a different purpose than, oh, let's just have fun. Like this would be just fun. And that's, I guess, kind of why I'm leaning towards like a less grimy version because it's not supposed to be realistic. It's not, at least like my view of it. But there is, because then I don't know, there's something having an edge, which I totally get. Because if it's too, there's a great word. Let's see, it's saccharin.
Saccharin.
Thank you, saccharin. It's funny. I read Obama's autobiography. He put out a year ago. Like the preview of it, basically the first chapter, and he said that the problem with reading too much, not to I guess toot my own fucking horn, but you mispronounce words. Like I've done that for years, and it's like, oh, why do I do that? It's like, yeah, because you're reading.
Honestly, I was gonna say the same thing. Is it dystopian or dystopian?
I think both work, though. I think that's different.
I feel like because Una says that sometimes too. She says that with something else. I'm like, is it that or this?
No, it's caramel and caramel. It's I think it's just different way of saying it. Theater.
Okay.
Well, not theater, but yeah.
How do you say? Yeah. How do you say that?
Say what?
What's in the Twix? How do you say that?
Caramel. It's caramel. To me, it's I say
Oh, you say caramel?
caramel. Yeah.
What do you say?
Oh, Wayfair.
Wayfair. Oh my
Oh,
god.
Wayfair.
No,
Wayfair.
I say Vafel.
It's
No,
Pop, guys. It's not soda. It's pop.
caramel. I say caramel. This is me. But like some people are here saying pecan. You know what I mean? And I'm just like interesting. You know, different strokes.
So apparently tomato is a genuine pronunciation. Is that true, or is that a joke?
It's gotta be.
Someone says tomato.
I don't think of any. Oh, maybe.
Because I thought it was a joke, but I remember reading like, no, some people it is tomato for some people. Tomato. That might be a British thing. I don't know. I just remember learning it's not a joke.
Hmm?
I just remember being blown away by that. Like, oh, it's not.
It's not.
There are people like tomato is a genuine pronunciation of that word. Like it's a valid one. Because I always thought it was a joke about
tomato, potato.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think I've ever heard anybody say potato.
That's why I could be making it up. I could be bullshitting you guys. I have no idea. I just remember learning that, and I thought that was interesting. What
you were reading Obama's book? You're saying, oh,
dystopian. I think both work. Dystopian. Whichever, exactly. We have like 13 minutes left. So the ideas that you guys have done so far, they suck. They don't. It's basic. It is very. Let me screen share. I wrote down some of what you guys have been saying. Big corporation deforms our main character. Hunting a corporation down. Get him to fix me. Yeah, this is a very dystopian version of the story, which could work.
Yeah.
I mean, it does. You know, it's funny. This does lean towards Batman. Like, if we were doing a riff on Batman, I'd say this is awesome. You know, but it's not. So, you know, boop. How does that feel, guys? So look at this. Boop.
Wait, can you go back? What did it say?
Right here. Boop.
Yeah.
No, go back.
Go back.
Oh, hey, look at that. That's your work. Ready? Right? Boop.
Boop. Oh man.
Perfect. Do it again. One more time.
Boop.
No, yeah, that's the stuff.
This is very Batman-y in a way, where it's kind of like, I think
Batman.
this is interesting.
You know, when I think of like corporations or like evil enterprise, I didn't bring up LexCorp. Yeah, but I feel like like
LexCorp.
Yeah.
I mean,
because like we were talking about like I know it was just like a joke or we were just talking about it, but like he was mayor of the place and then he became president. I'm like, that's Lex Luthor.
Yeah, Lex Luthor. No, he literally did become president.
Became president, yeah, exactly. So.
I guess we'd really have to play with the. Again, this is why Dean said, "Don't do this, you fucking dummy." Because
I think not doing it for your first script. Yeah. Focus on more of a character-driven sort of tale. It can be action, it can be whatnot, but staying away from all the glitz and glamour and effects and the lore of everything, and just being able to kind of like you can work your way up to that, but just starting out with that.
All right, in 10 minutes.
And of like telling like a good story down just yet at that length. So and then work your way up. Like, I don't know what writer or director just came out the gate
with their magnum
Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter. Like they didn't.
Well, yeah, because even like Brian Michael Bendis was doing crime stories and crime comics. And that's I done like Scott Snyder did horror. That was his break-in. So yeah, it's actually true even in the comics side of things. I guess because it's the Chris Nolan quote. Like I grew up with these big mythic things, So it's kind of hard to go. All right, don't write that though.
Well, when you're straight up adapting it for the screen or just for another interpretation. And then at that point, you do have to just kind of do your due diligence, figure out what you like about the character, and then figure out how to reinterpret it and what sort of things you can take from that previous material that you want to maybe bring into your new one. Figure out like, okay, I want to keep this just as is, and this thing maybe I can tweak a bit. This thing I can totally ditch. I don't even want to touch that. And then bring in your new ideas, and maybe those new ideas will become foundational for what people feel like the mythos of that character is. Like I was just watching a video yesterday about the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, and I used to really not like those movies, and I still don't really, but after watching that video, I have a better appreciation for it, to the point where I feel like I may like his performance the most out of all those.
I do too. Yeah.
I think he's probably the most talented actor out of all of them, and maybe even has the most passion for the role. And even his interpretation of the character is a little bit closer to what a modern Peter Parker might be like, as opposed to what Tobey Maguire did. Because even Tobey Maguire, he was on record saying like, I read the script, I couldn't get attached to the character. And even throughout the series, he's not really the highlight of it. His whole performance, his arc even, is like a little, aside from the first movie, like he actually has like a definitive arc, but like his acting, his performance, like it's decently flat. But for a lot of people, that became the definitive Parker, Spider-Man, like even though it wasn't really what the comics were like at all. But that just goes to show, because Sam Raimi, he actually loved comics. He loved those comics, but he reinterpreted it so that other people loved it, but for different reasons. But he kind of reshaped the mythos. And then when Mark Webb and Andrew Garfield, they try to modernize it.
It's the opposite too, because Mark Webb didn't really read a bunch of the like Spider-Man comics too much, but Andrew Garfield was
he was really
So
that's the thing too, is with the Spider-Man, with Raimi's movies, I've been using Good Will Hunting as a comparison for that, but I even don't know why it hit me just now. It's basically Forrest Gump, where it's like it's that tone. We're just talking tone here, and it's like, oh, that's the tone of it,
Oh, well, yeah, it's definitely it's campy for sure.
It's campy, but like really like sweet and sugary, but it's also supposed to be taken seriously, and that's very different from like what Mark Webb and what's his fucking name, John Watts or Watt.
John Watts, the new director.
John Watts. That's very different from what they're going for, and very different from what Stan Lee built.
They also had to deal with, and Sam Raimi caught this at the end, and that's why Spider-Man 3 is the way it is. But all Sam Raimi for the third movie, and then Mark Webb and John Watts all had to deal with extreme studio control.
Yeah.
To the point where it's like their movie it wasn't just their movie.
Right.
Like Sam Raimi, he didn't want to have to include Venom in his movie. The Amazing Spider-Man 2, like I guarantee you, if Sony was more hands off with that movie actually would have been really, really good. But they threw in a bunch of shit because they wanted to build up the lore and expand so that people could jump into these other movies, and that put a bullet. The movie basically shot itself. And then with the MCU Spider-Man, you can talk for hours about whether or not like it's a positive or negative that he is like in the expanded universe with everyone else.
I think it's a negative. I actually think it's a negative. But
I think there are arguments on both sides for why it's positive and negative. A lot of times, like it's almost the best part of those movies is seeing him interact with everyone else. But then that's at the detriment of that. You don't get to spend time with just him alone, or even with the supporting cast. Like you don't really, and that's the thing, is that movies are made like in those silent moments when you just got to get to see the character be the character. But when things are always happening and you don't really get to sit and breathe, and I think that's what's
kind of like a roller coaster, isn't it?
It's like a roller coaster. You don't get a chance to sit down, breathe, and digest what just happened. You keep going and going. You don't get to actually sit down and just be like, and you did in those Raimi Spider-Man movies.
I like them more, and that's all Martin Scorsese is trying to say.
Exactly.
But
Loses powers and
yeah.
like really like see.
Go through it, so to speak, and that gave you more. You got to sit with the character a bit more. But you know, when it's like, oh, okay, now he has a scene with Iron Man, now he has a scene with Captain America, now he has a scene where he fights Thanos.
That is good. That's something. Yeah, that's true.
You don't get to.
It's cool to see them together, but at the same time, it's just like does it take away from the actual character?
Yeah,
itself,
and then you don't get to see that character sort of develop. But
well, speaking of character. We're almost at 4:30. I kind of want 10 more minutes to just build this fucking character before we go, but we could also not do that. What do you guys think?
It's up to you.
It's up to me.
Yeah. Well, what would you
like to really address the criticism? Because we mostly talked about the world this episode, not really the character at all. We didn't talk about Tyler at all. Well, no, we did a little bit. We
talked about the basics, but we didn't really build out his supporting cast. But we also didn't get to the most important thing: is that what is his conflict? What is Tyler? Because in those Spider-Man movies, it's like in the original one, it's like, oh, I want to find like my uncle's killer. Those are the first two, and then in the MCU ones, it's like I want to be
an Avenger, but I have to learn how.
In the Miles Morales one, it's like I want to live up to being Spider-Man, but
Tyler wants to, because again, this is real Tyler. He actually he still faces this stuff now, which we love him and give him the support. But it's the idea of like he wants to be him in a way where he isn't, I guess, the quiet kid. He wants to be more than that. And that's the inner conflict.
He's trying to do this through Spider-Man.
What, real Tyler or fake Tyler?
Fake Tyler.
Yeah, it's a coming of age thing. So it's just that's the story for him now.
I think that's a given in any sort of Spider-Man and by extension superhero story where it's like you're trying to like get, and even with the video I watched with like Andrew Garfield.
What video is this? What video? What channel?
It was this YouTuber, totally not Mark. He does just reviews on different series, and he really takes his time with it. His videos are pretty long, but he's nice with it. I'll say he's nice with it. But Andrew Garfield was talking about how he tried to portray Spider-Man as sort of and Peter Parker as like the rebellious orphan who is given more confidence by the Spider-Bite and kind of is given access to confidence that he didn't have previously. But he was also saying how that first movie, and this is something that I didn't even catch when I first watched the movie, but he's totally right. And in thinking about it, it's like this should be what every Spider-Man movie, or not every Spider-Man movie, but when you do the origin story, I feel like it is needed, is that it's trying to define whether or not he's doing this for the right or wrong reasons. Like he plays the Spider-Man with a lot of ego, rebelliousness, and even revenge, because it is ultimately a revenge story. He puts on the suit to find his uncle's killer. Yeah. But then later on in the movie, he comes into conflict with the police, and he has this argument with Gwen's dad, Captain Stacy, about like whether or not what he's doing is right, and that's when it really clicks for him. Like, oh, I can do more with this, as opposed to just being driven completely by like my own selfish goals. And then he learns, ultimately with great power comes great responsibility. That's like the basis of the character. Interestingly enough, never said in the actual original comics. It was just like a little tidbit.
There must also come great, and that's what I loved about Aunt May's line. It's the original one.
Oh, spoilers!
You did. Wait, who didn't watch the movie?
I'm saying, yeah, we watched it generally.
Yeah.
I'm saying generally, it's only been,
go fuck. If you didn't see the movie by now and you're listening to this, I don't give a shit.
Yo,
Roy,
really? You're listening?
What if Roy didn't see the movie?
Yeah.
All right, dude. When you edit this, you need to put in like it's like, all right, skip here if you don't want to be spoiled for No Way Home. Specifically talking to you, Roy.
Specifically, Roy. Roy, you're right. Yeah, Roy didn't like these movies when I was with him. Hey, Roy, do you want to watch Civil War? Like, no, fuck no, I don't want to watch Civil War.
Really?
Yeah, he was like, no, I'm not watching that. Yeah.
That's not Roy, I know.
Yeah, I had to ask. Oh, it's its own story. Where it's like, so Roy said no, so I had to get well, he did. I'm sure. Well, yeah. I was like, yeah, he wasn't interested. All right, I'll ask someone else. And I asked these two dudes I hung out with for like a weekend. Like the first weekend of college, like, you know, the first weekend of college when you meet people and they're like, oh, you're cool, and then you find out, no, you're not. Like how with them with Spider-Man, it was kind of a weird night because it's like I don't
Oh, what if
want to.
you're watching the podcast right now? They find out you just call them weird.
Well, one, they're not, but two, well, if
Yeah.
they are, you are weird. You are weird, Tom and Jerry. I don't know why I said Tom because now it's a clearly fake name. Yeah, I just always wanted that's just a fun weird story. That about but Roy, yeah, he won't be watching this video. So specifically, Roy, Spider-Man loses his virginity in this movie at the halfway mark to Tobey Maguire. It's pretty intense. It's actually very Call Be By Your Name kind of, where it's like it's this relationship with a.
So is this we'll make this the whole spoiler section, I guess, of the podcast. But
Yeah.
I will say when we saw the movie, the way the movie opened, I was really high off the edible. Like for a second, I didn't know what I was watching. because he it's like when they go to the apartment and it's like Peter, he's like half naked.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are you doing? And blah blah. And she's like, oh, we broke up, like me and Happy. It's like it's just not working between us. And he's like, what? And then she's like, it's fine if you guys are having sex, like blah blah, this and that, like it's normal and everything like that. He's like, we're not having sex, like blah blah blah. He's like in his underwear. The way they shot it was like very fly on the wall. And I feel like I had like almost an out of body experience, and I was like, what if they tricked everyone into thinking like they were gonna see like a normal Spider-Man movie, but now it's gonna be like some weird teen like sex comedy or something like that. And I'm just sitting there like, yo, this is about to be the biggest prank on the planet.
Oh
like,
my god!
Luckily enough, the movie ship righted itself. But for a second there, and I think it was just the edible, I was like, what am I watching?
How funny would it be if they included Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, which, okay, spoiler alert, I mean, they did. But but literally in the Marvel movies, there's an Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, and it's like they work together with Spider-Man. Like these two actors, like literally actor Andrew Garfield, actor Tobey Maguire.
Are you saying like they make a movie of Spider-Man like in universe and cast them?
No, in universe, Tom Holland as actual Spider-Man goes on an adventure and he runs into actor Tobey Maguire and actor Andrew Garfield. They say hi, they say bye, and then he goes up to do Spider-Man stuff, and then the movie ends, and that's how they were included in the movie.
Everyone would have been really mad.
Dude, I mean, it's true. They're in the movie, guys. I mean, it's Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, because
I think everyone would have been really pissed because it's like you literally had them on set.
Yeah.
You literally wrote them into the movie. It's like, oh, he just says hi to them. Like,
no, it's just it's a cameo, basically. It's just, hi, and, because we don't want to break the rule. I mean, maybe in the future we'll include their characters in Spider-Man, but for now, I think if we include them, I think we're making the universe too big. We want to go smaller. So, but we still love our fans, and we really wanted to include and pay tribute to old Spider-Man. So we brought them back just for a cameo.
The whole thing about Marvel now is that they're doing the whole multiverse thing, and really after killing off like half the universe, bringing them back, they're really. We were talking about this earlier. I feel like a few weeks ago. Like, where are concepts gonna go after they do?
You're gonna see Indiana Jones in the same movie with Forrest Gump.
Oh, you think they're just gonna do? They're gonna cross over.
You're gonna see. I realized, because I asked the same question, like, where's this going? And I was like, oh, fuck. Like, you're going to see Batman with the Avengers at some point. That's really the only way this goes. Like, or it all falls apart, and then we have to reckon with, like, what are our new A-list movies? Because these are the A-list movies right now.
Comics where they cross over, but I don't know if they would do a movie version of that. At least
it's the only way, because if it's all product, and that's Scorsese's point. If this is all product, what's stopping you from crossing over shit? It's all content anyway. It's all fucking toys. And that's what makes his balls shrivel up and shake. It's like, oh, shake, like vibrate. I don't know. I think it was another. Oh, that's what makes him shake in his boots. That I conflated the two. He's shaking in his boots because it's all turning into like, oh my god, you're gonna have like, you're gonna resurrect Marlon Brando and he's gonna be in the same movie with Orson Welles. That, but it's this toyification of film that he doesn't like.
That's less that I mean they could do that, and that definitely is a problem with like CGIing like dead actors and bringing them back.
And that's just one example, but the toyification of cinema.
Yes, I feel like that's a larger problem as opposed to like just the superhero.
It is a larger problem, absolutely.
Because that's more for like just actors and like post production and things like that. But with just like the superhero movie genre, like I mean, people will keep going to see these movies as long as they're interested in them. And you look at the box office for all these Marvel movies that came out in 2021. So you have like, what was it? Spider-Man, Black Widow, Eternals, and Shang-Chi. Yeah. What's the movie that made the most money? Spider-Man. Yeah. What's the movie that made like the least money? I think it was either the Eternals or Black Widow. Yeah. One of those. So like people weren't interested those concepts really, so they didn't go and see the movies.
Right.
People went and saw Spider-Man. People will always go and see a Spider-Man movie, regardless of like, what's going on at the time. I mean, we're literally in a fucking pandemic, and it's like we both saw the movie opening night. It made like it's like the 6th highest like domestic box office movie of like all time.
Yeah.
Like people will go see that movie. All these other comic book movies, that's to be seen. Like that's on a case by case basis.
I don't think it's gonna work. I think Marvel's gonna find out real soon that we kind of can't. We can't use our 60 years of comic book shit and just keep making movies. At some point, I think people are getting off the train. I honestly, and not only that, the bigger thing, and I told Tyler this, and at first he was like, "What?" But I think I made it make sense. These movies exist because there's no cultural narrative right now. There isn't like. I mean, if these fill up the same space as Westerns and World War II movies, the next big thing will just be there'll be movies based on an event that actually happens in the real world, like World War II did. But because there hasn't been a truly earth-shattering event since World War II, and that was 80 years ago, we're kind of in this weird place as a species of like where are we going, And I think
definitely been events and ideas and things that have transformed the world
but not the way World War II did, where it's like, holy shit, everything's different now. Everything's different.
In terms of like formation of a new country and like the atomic power.
I guess, yeah. And it's like it's been showing in our movies where it's like, oh, we've been running on this Go America narrative for 80 years.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. It's the end of all empires. I was actually watching something. It's like, all right, watching the end of like America's golden age, because it's been about 100 years, honestly. You know what I mean? I mean, if you don't really count the Great Depression, that 10 years.
I did well because The Godfather is about the golden age of America and how there's an emptiness to it. So does Citizen Kane. All those great movies about how empty that post-world. Well, Citizen Kane is pre-World War II, but Godfather. The whole reason it works is it's the ultimate post-World War II tragedy of like the corruption of America. You come to this country, you make a shitload of money, and you burn everything to the ground spiritually, and you're left with just staring, like as Michael Corleone does, staring into the this is too poetic even for me, but the abyss of your own soul. There's nothing left. That's why those two movies, in my opinion, are held at the same that they are. Like, oh, these were these giant events, and we haven't really. I mean, I do hypothesize. I think we did. I kind of. But when well, they have happened, but I don't think we've been dealing with them in a great way. And I do kind of.
I think we're still too close to these events. Like when you say
what I was saying,
big transformative events, I would say like the social network.
You know what I mean? Like we're gonna have like a lot more like the social network was a huge. There was a 2010.
Yeah.
I think that's the best movie of the 2010s. By the way, and it is the kind of like that movie I'm talking about. Like, oh, this spoke to the world we're in. That movie.
And then even before then, I would say like post 9/11 and like the creation of like homeland security and talking about like sort of just like terrorism, whether or not we are like the bad guys like going out and pillaging like
I think where I kind of I'm as I've gotten older, I'm kind of like I think we have to have. I mean, this is my own artistic ambitions lately. I've been trying to. I mean, I actually told you guys one of them. Osama bin well, I told you about Osama bin Laden, Devin, and I told you about Muhammad Atta, and kind of like basically writing something about 90s Al Qaeda, and that being like the thing that is what I'm talking about. Another one was Iranian Revolution. That's been actually one that's even more important to me right now. Because I think a lot of the issue, my pitch for that was, and I guess still is, the 21st century happened not on 9/11, but in 1979 when Iran, which was for the most part a Western country, was basically overthrown and replaced with a theocracy, a backwards looking civilization. And that seems like, oh, I think that's kind of where we might be going politically. So that might be what the next 10 years looks like. I was looking at this shit with the 2000 with the what is it, January 6th thing yesterday, and like how I mean this I didn't even look into this. It's huh?
You there?
Yeah, I was no, but I was looking into there was a new article, there was a new story. Yeah, I was there, guys. I was some of them. I was
like in the comments if you were there on
like it. So yeah, like and subscribe if you were part of the 1-6 movement. Bring Donald back. Hashtag bring Donald back. Well, wait, if we were there, because if we're supporting people who were there, I guess we are.
I'm not supporting them. I'm just saying if you were there.
Oh yeah, so yeah. Oh yes, like and subscribe if you were there.
Stay away from me.
Yeah, like and subscribe if you're against Trump. Like subscribe if you're for Trump. I'm for people. Like and subscribe if you like movies. Like and subscribe, guys. Like it in the comments below. The article was about Donald Trump. It was fucking Kevin McCarthy admitting that Trump acknowledged responsibility for the 1-6 thing. And I immediately went to Iran because I mean it's like, oh, that's kind of like that idea of like just quick dramatic change in a world, and going in that specific direction of like going backwards, returning to a world of like that, a dark age sort of like, we're a country under God, that to me was like that to me has been very interesting as of late. And yeah, I think that would be the sort of movie that I'd be interested in, or I've been thinking of it as a play actually, because I know Hollywood wouldn't. Because I remember we talked about it, Devin, where it's like, no, who would go for an Osama bin Laden movie? And it's like, no one. But if it's a book or a play, I mean, that's because you don't need the money to, you don't need to make money for that to be a thing.
You're more open to experimental, sort of, I guess, like stories, or maybe something that would be seen as a bit more taboo.
And I think because taboo is where I think things are most interesting when it's taboo. It's like the 9/11 thing with Atta. I always seem like the whole point of that existing is like, what if they were right? What if America? I mean, if you look at if you look at bin Laden and Atta, and there was a philosopher I talked to you briefly about from 1960, the 60s, Syed Khattab, I think his name is, who was writing basically all the same shit like the Twitter left people say, and just the left in general. Like America is this corrupt machine that just this misanthropic, inhumane machine. Like that's why we got planes flown in our fucking buildings, kinda. Like to sympathize on that level is like, it's scary, but it's like I think that's what the real like art is about. It's supposed to be scary. Like that's what Apocalypse Now and Taxi Driver and and if you go back further, I guess what Dostoevsky, whatever, I think that's what that shit was about. Was like, oh, let's really deal with like really scary shit. That I might not I agree with totally. But yeah, so I forget what my original point was. With stupid rumor, but because you don't want to deal with that, we go like, no, guys, it's just if we just all get together weekend, which is still true. I know this has been a very Paul heavy last 10 minutes, which will probably close with this probably.
These things is that all these Marvel movies, DC movies, they are sponsored by the military and the Pentagon. That's how they get access to these.
And yeah, you know what?
Get some
Look,
things like they're working with the government, and you know they are preaching a certain set of values.
Right, it's the William Goldman thing. It's criticizing versus upholding society. But it's all, you know what? Yeah, I do agree with the values Marvel deals with, though. I guess that's the thing. It's like, yeah, I think it is cool that I was showing he's another, I guess he's a friend of the show, Noah. Jared met him for 10 minutes. He's actually been the person I've talked the most since graduating college about, especially about this stuff. And I was showing him trailers for Stallone movies in the 90s, and they're terrible. And they're like bad movies. And it's like, oh, Iron Man, like, as much as Scorsese gives the Marvel movies, they're not this. They're actually, you watch them and you do get a sense of values from them, you know, about doing what's right and having faith and standing up for stuff you believe in and making the world a better place, you know, like that's what those movies are about. So
Some I feel like when I was younger and those movies were like a little bit more simplistic, that might have been what I took away from them. But now, as an adult looking at them, I look more so at I don't know, like character conflicts. I'm always more interested usually in the development of the antagonist as opposed to what's happening with the protagonist. Because a lot of times protagonist character arc after their first movie is fairly flat. Like they're just the person. They're usually
like Pulp Fiction in general, it's supposed to be a way to generate more stories. You can't do that if the character changes. So
true. So, but
yeah.
I definitely feel like I said, like I definitely gravitate more towards what the antagonist is doing if they're you know a properly written and engaging antagonist, and you know not just like a lot of Marvel movies have weak antagonists and they focus a lot on just sort of like quippy action, like here's how we get from set piece to set piece sort of thing. Like you don't really get to see the characters grow so much. And the thing is, you did in that Iron Man trilogy. You have to see him actually change. But the thing is, when he went back and interacted with the other characters, it almost seemed like he would double back because at the end of his own trilogy, he gave up being Iron Man, and then next Avengers movie, he's still Iron Man.
I love Civil War.
Yeah, a little bit. It kind of worked, but almost movie to movie, it seemed like just inconsistent.
And I think it was a fantastic writing choice by again. By the way, the thing about, I mean, Scorsese said it, but I go even further. I think there's a great artist making these movies, like Russo brothers and Marcus and McFeely. They're very, very intelligent, good people, and they basically they worked that in with Tony Stark, where what's her? Why am I blank? Pepper Potts broke up with Tony for that because he was like an addict. Like you really can't quit this.
That happened off screen,
but it influenced how that character was acting in that movie, where it's like it's depressed and run down and like, and it's my favorite Marvel movie by far. That is Civil War.
Don't like that movie though. I think it's fine. I think it's great.
But yeah, there is the real world thing. Is like yes, because we kind of fucked ourselves at like, yeah, I'm quitting the suit, guys. I'm done. No more Iron, which itself was written in because Robert Downey Jr. was gonna quit Iron Man. Like he thought he might be done after Iron Man 3. So they're like, all right, well, if he's done, this will be the ending, and then he'll go off into the sunset. And then they gave him more money.
Yeah, I was gonna say then they gave him bricks load at mine.
There was one thing, and then I guess we won 20 minutes of, which is all fine. What the fuck was I gonna say? Yeah, I guess it's really complicated. I guess it's the most important thing is you have to just know who you're writing for, what the audience is.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'll say this too. The thing, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The thing with comic book movies, usually the hero wants to make things stay the way they are, and the antagonist wants to change things. And that's why I think the antagonist usually is more interesting. They're usually more flawed. They're more human. So I think that's a very astute observation. Yeah, Devin, he's waving his hand. Oh, you need some? What is that? What is this? What is?
I don't know. I'm missing
Oh,
this.
I don't know. But yeah, it's kind of it, I think. And I think, what was I gonna say? Because I read an article about that. Where I think about Mission Impossible, where it's like, I think it was Mission Impossible, or maybe I just made an observation of like what is Ethan Hunt fighting for? Like, why is he?
Well, you know what's so funny? So the only Mission Impossible movie I've seen is what is it?
The one where they were in
Fallout.
Dubai.
I don't even
that
know
the
if they
one?
went to Dubai.
Oh, okay.
It was Fallout. It was 7.
I think it's a great movie, by the way.
It was the first Mission Impossible I've ever seen, and I loved it. I had such an amazing time in the theater. My friends, I saw like 2 friends. We had never seen a Mission Impossible movie before. We really enjoyed it, but there was one scene where it's like his ex-wife from like 2 movies ago is like some nurse at some camp that they're at, and they're having like this really like heartfelt moment where it's like, I'm sorry I left, but I had to save the world. She's like, no, you're helping everybody, like you're doing what you need to, like it's all gonna be okay. And me and my friends are looking at each other like, where the fuck is this coming from? we're laughing our ass off in the theater. It's like, what does this have to do with anything? It turns out like she was a big character in the earlier movies, but we weren't caught up on any of that, so we just didn't know. So it didn't hit as effectively for us. But that's not to say, I'm sure if I watched the previous movies, I would have enjoyed that scene much more.
Yeah.
For me, it didn't do anything because I hadn't seen anything, but I still really liked that movie. That movie made me not like Tom Cruise, but I was okay that Tom Cruise was in the movie. That's how good that movie was. That I was like, oh, Tom Cruise, all right.
So tell me this: what is Ethan Hunt fighting for? Like what is James Bond fighting for? What are the Avengers fighting for?
They fight for, I don't know. James Bond really fights for his like over, I don't know, MI6 England.
He fights. He's on a mission.
He is on a mission.
Ethan Hunt on a mission, but also protecting the world. James Bond, I think he knows he's like fighting to protect the world, but he himself
under
is
the
like,
scope of.
From what are they fighting against?
Like evil syndicates who want to poison the water supply
And villains.
Why do they want to poison the water supply?
Why
do they want to poison the water supply?
Because they're evil.
And
it's because they have some kind of, what were you gonna say?
Motivations change from time to time. A lot of times now, these villains are eco-terrorists, and they want to cull the world's population to preserve the environment.
Isn't that a good thing, to preserve the environment?
Well,
yeah, but not like.
No, for sure. But you know what these movies aren't about is actually doing anything to change the world. That's actually an Ultron line. It's like
stopping that one person from doing something.
These movies are constantly about stopping change and stopping progress. And we're never given a movie where it's like, no, the movie's about progress. The movie's about making a better tomorrow. And it's always like, no, we can't do. Don't think about tomorrow. Think about today.
So you're advocating for these villains, Paul?
I'm advocating for superhero movies that are about making the world a better place on a systemic level, I guess. We're really going over, guys. I hope you don't. I do hope you don't mind.
Well, that's also a thing that's interesting because it's been reflected in a couple of comics about how a lot of the superhero genre now has just been about watching people punch each other instead of people actually being heroic and saving people.
Right.
I know the Champion series, that was like a comic book series that had like Miles Morales, like Young Nova, Miss Marvel. They were originally a part of the Avengers team, but then the Avengers, like the whole superhero community, had like another civil war. They actually broke off from the Avengers, and they're like, all you old people do is fight each other. Like, you're not actually saving anyone. So we're going to make our own team. They're basically like the Teen Titans, but they're purely just for like, people will call them if they need help. Like, what if your house is on fire or there was like a tsunami hitting like your village or something like that, you would call them up and they would come, as opposed to the Avengers where it's like, we're here to fucking punch people in the face.
Yeah.
And even with some Batman stories, more Batman stories as of late, they've kind of been examining the fact that Bruce Wayne is himself like a billionaire. He has all this money, yet he chooses to just punch people and dress up in like a bat suit, as opposed to actually trying to like push forward
and use some of that money
public programs that would actually fix all the things that are fundamentally wrong with Gotham. But then those stories can also delve more into like how Gotham itself is like corrupt in terms of like
Officials,
police,
yeah.
politicians, and there's even a whole group of shadowy figures called the Court of Owls, who are basically
Yeah.
of Gotham. Who,
Yeah, I actually did
anytime
hear
where
about
Bruce
that.
Wayne actually did try to do something, they were pulling the strings the whole time to make it so that none of it would be in effect. So they
That's
could
Scott
have,
Snyder's first run, too.
yeah,
So
yeah. So
he met Scott. Jared, talk about meeting Scott Snyder really quick. 30 seconds, go.
All right, I did meet him a couple times, and I do
Couple
this.
of times?
Yeah, a couple times. Once
I
or
didn't
twice.
know that.
I think no, actually, a couple times. Maybe once. Just at those comic conventions, and we did a thing where we'd interview people like at the stuff.
I know.
And
That's cool.
yeah, we interviewed him for a second. Very nice guy.
Very cool.
Yeah, that is a good. Yeah, he's a great writer. Follow him on Twitter.
Did you ever read Court of Owls?
No, I haven't.
I have the first one.
Oh, maybe I
If you
would read
want
it.
it.
Yeah, I think I'll read it. All right.
I was reading, not quite when I was reading his late Batman Eternal. I was reading like an issue of that like a year ago. Which again, what we were writing before would kind of fit in that sense of comic book stuff. But that's my thing, and yeah, I guess that's probably one of the final topics. Is I've been also trying to answer that, but like, I was doing is another story I was trying to crack like a little bit. A James, like basically, it came from the French Revolution, specifically Napoleon. I kind of transposed that story to modern America, but like in 10 years, I guess, where it's like, again, so America kind of goes the poopy way, but the people overthrow the bad people, and like they set up it's basically Bernie Sanders land now. Like everything that we three believe in, that's what America looks like now. And I wanted to have a James Bond who fought for that, basically. Like, and that was the idea. Like basically, like what would that like? Because yeah, I saw Bond and I was like, what is this guy fighting for?
Healthcare and like Kool-Aid coming out of water fountains.
And now we're defending Kool-Aid. Wait, Kool-Aid coming out of water fountains?
Yeah, Kool-Aid or Hawaiian Punch. I'm down for whatever.
Yeah, Bernie Sanders, and it's like, okay, now the pulp shit makes sense because these people are fighting for preserving a good world, not a rotting one, basically. That was one. I also just really quick, Jared. What do you think about what was that fucking thing that set off the revolution?
French Revolution?
The bar. What's the
What do you mean that set it off?
where they stormed the Bastille.
Marie Antoinette. Yeah. No, but there's a few things.
The storming
but
of the
a lot of it
Bastille.
was just like the fact that the peasants really could. I don't know. They could barely. Bread was like a scarcity and a big staple of it, and then a lot of the food is being hoarded by the 1% that would party literally every day. They had to get their bread up. So exactly.
So yeah, I was thinking of doing and writing something about the storming of the Bastille too.
Oh yes, the storming of the Bastille. Yeah, July 14th.
You guys still celebrate that? Like, is that a big deal in France?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's like a huge. It is definitely still a national holiday that people are just. I see like my cousins post about it on the 14th sometimes. Like,
Is it the level of 4th of July or no?
I guess it's the national holiday akin to 4th of July. I would say so. Yeah, I would. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's probably. I just wanted to get that because I brought up before of like, oh, the French Revolution. What if you did that seriously? But that's really all we got now. So just to end on, I wish it's funny with these writing sessions. I kind of find out like what we really should have been doing because like last time we were writing a crime comic and I was like we should have just sat down and just write things that could happen in this movie. And this is basically like who is this character, Tyler?
This could all be beneficial. You know what I mean? Because then now you know what that.
Well, yeah, like yeah. I'm just gonna write down literally who is Tyler, and that would be a starting up point for another. Again, if one were to pick up work on this, is like trying to really just nail down his story.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really all I got. Thanks for
Paul,
listening.
thanks
Anyone
for coming
tune
on
in?
the podcast, man. It's been great having you.
First fucking yeah, thanks. So come back next time for the Devin and Jared show.
Podcast that you do that you wanna plug, or the podcast, our podcast, me and Jared's.
Yeah. None. I'll get back to you on that, guys.
All right.
All right, like and subscribe for the Devin and Jared show. Yeah, no, this has been. I'm glad you guys did this. I got down so many thoughts about what I think about the past 2.5 years since college. So this is really cool. I as for next one, I do have some ideas for next one. If Andy wants to report, I got to think of something for Andy. I got to think about.
So you did hear it from me, but Andrew really loves Alvin and the Chipmunks.
That is such an insider.
Yeah, that's an insight.
That is an insider to end insiders. I don't know what that's referring to at all.
Really loves Alvin and the Chipmunks. So yeah, definitely email Andrew, see when you can have him on, and Jared and I will also try and hop on the podcast. We are actually saying it would be awesome if every time you have a new guest on the podcast, all the old guests are also there.
This mayhem. We're not gonna. This is not gonna. This is mostly gonna be, I think, just me and Jared sort of writing. It's actually this was supposed to be. It was supposed to be an original series, not original. Like a sort of mini series of like we're only gonna be 8 of these. But I kind of quickly realized like, oh, I can kind of just like one of the next ideas. And again, if Andy wants to be part of it, but I'd rather do something else with Andy that's more specific to Andy. Because like the only reason why I picked you, Devin, was because like I remember like you were actually one of the very few writers who was into this franchise shit. Like especially like most writers are more like at Perch are more like Andy. Like they weren't like Spider-Man. Like what the fuck's a Spider-Man? What? I mean, they knew what the character was, but they weren't, they wouldn't choose to write something like this. Like I was gonna talk to Jared about writing brainstorming stuff for like some sitcoms, like one specifically being like to do Friends, but like I tried to pitch Tyler on this, like to do Friends, but like actual like what life is like for you guys, especially in like Bushwick, like to basically do that level of show, but being honest about life at our age.
It's girls.
Yeah, so it's like that. It's like it's basically okay. What does our version specific to us look like of like girls? I mean, New Girl, like Seinfeld. If that can be done, because it might not be able to be done. It might be a dead genre, maybe. But I don't think you guys think so.
No, I think having Friends will always be in style.
Yeah, I think so.
And betraying life as a mid-20s person, where it's like. I mean, what you said before, Devin, where it's like, I just got a new job after, what were you saying? Like months of just not.
Oh, I did odd jobs here and there, like on-set stuff, but I finally, even this job I got, I'm only booked for like 2 weeks, but I have other things, just like work-related stuff, like coming up in, a bunch of different capacities.
Like, why is that not a show? Like portraying that versus like with Friends, where it was, because I do love Friends, but it was always like, their life was like they were figured out, and it's like, I mean, it wasn't. I don't know. Again, that we're getting into territory that would be for another podcast. Like, how do you do Friends?
Someone come on who's like an expert on that type of show. Who like really
I would if I had. I mean, I'm open to suggestions, but
Say how much about fathers now.
oh, wait, say it again. Whose fathers now?
How much father is like that whole genre of things is like, I guess, yeah, still a thing.
I'm a father now. It's a genre. What is that?
Yeah, exactly. Or no, How I Met Your Father, the show.
Oh, that fucking show.
Like, yeah, the spin-off is like, yeah, no. So like you said, it's gonna be.
Jared also had a baby.
Oh my god, missing.
Oh, CJ. Oh, and then we'll go. Okay, and then we're really, here's my cats.
Nursing in a bit. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you want that.
Come on.
No, where's the remote?
Jared Nurse CJ. Drop a
thumbs up.
Have a seat. So like and subscribe. Like and subscribe if you like cats, guys. Like and subscribe. Here's 2. Oh no. 1 second. This is two kitties,
A Tale of Two Kitties.
one kitty.
What's that kitty's name? Oh.
Tiger.
Oh wait, that reminds me, Paul. When you have Andrew on, he's also a big Garfield fan.
Oh yeah.
So maybe talk to him about like the differences between like
Anthropomorphic cats.
yeah, like the difference between like Garfield and Heathcliff and like the Bill Murray Garfield versus like the comic Garfield.
Guys, you're gonna look at this shit.
Right.
Look at this.
Wow.
Are you fucking kidding me?
What's the name?
Callie, she's a girl.
What's in there?
I just clothes.
Just clothes.
And then that's the girl cat. He's a boy. Tigger.
What's his name?
Tigger. He's a boy.
That was my neighbor's name. That was my neighbor's cat name as well.
So you didn't know a human being named Tigger?
No, neighbor's cat name. I meant to say that. Yeah, and then I found her dead on the driveway.
Jesus.
It's really sad. Good cat.
Ooh. So what sucks is they can't interact over a computer screen.
No.
It'd be really fun if they could.
But the love is there, I'm sure.
The love is there. They're cousins. How about that shit? They're cousins, maybe. Those are our cats. There's the cutie. Wait, what just happened?
Wait, no, dude. It was just we put CJ like around the camera, and then you just hear like her like paws hitting the keyboard.
What if she's our next guest? What if we just have her?
She already is.
So CJ, what do you think of? You want to write like a crime drama? Yeah, like Dora, like yeah, you do want to write it. Okay.
Yeah, you do want to write it.
What do you think? So what if we had like a guy who breaks out of jail, CJ? What do you think? Yeah, I like that too.
Right? She's so smart.
She's such a smart baby. What do you think? How do you think the show should end, CJ?
Cats, huh?
How do you think the show should? Can you translate for CJ? How do you think the show ends, CJ? Translate.
Yeah, okay. I think she just says you just firmly
what?
Yeah, firmly grasp it.
I think that's a nice show ending. Well, shit, that's it, guys.
Mm-hmm.
So tune in next time on the Devin and Jared show. Like and subscribe. Dev, I'm gonna stop recording, so I'll be here for a hot second. But thanks for tuning in, for listening, and have a good day, guys. Bye bye. Signing off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Signing off.